1. Smile with your eyes, not just mouth. Ever met someone whose smile didn't quite reach their eyes? That kind of smile feels fake, forced, maybe even suspicious. That's because humans have an uncanny ability to detect inauthenticity, especially in microexpressions. When you smile with just your mouth, your lips curl, but your eyes stay cold. It's called a non-Dutchen smile. But when you smile with your eyes, everything changes. Your cheeks lift, crow's feet form, and your whole face lights up. That's a Dutchen smile, and it's magnetic. This kind of smile activates the part of the brain associated with trust and safety. It's the smile that babies respond to. It's the smile that makes strangers feel at ease, co-workers feel like allies, and your words land more gently. Even in high-stakes conversations, negotiations, interviews, first impressions, a Dutchen smile can lower defenses and open doors. So how do you do it? Think of something genuinely delightful before you smile. Channel a moment that made you feel warm or laugh unexpectedly. When your brain experiences joy, your face mirrors that emotion, especially your eyes. You can also practice in a mirror. Yes, really. Train yourself to engage your upper cheeks and eyes together with your smile. Once you lock in that feeling, it becomes muscle memory. This small shift turns a generic gesture into an emotional bridge. It says, "I'm here. I'm safe. I see you." And people will respond in kind, often without knowing why. 2. Ask, how did that make you feel? This simple question is a psychological unlock. While most people ask, "What happened?" or "Why did you do that?" those questions keep conversations stuck in facts or defenses. But when you ask someone, "How did that make you feel?" something subtle but powerful happens. You invite them to move from logic to emotion. And that's where connection lives. When people talk about their feelings, they go beyond just narrating events. They expose their values, their wounds, their hopes. Asking this question gives them space to reflect, often in a way they haven't before. And because you asked it, they associate that insight with you. That's the bond-forming magic. Therapists use this question not just to understand, but to lead people deeper into self-awareness. But in everyday life, it signals something profound, that you're not just hearing words. You're listening to the person beneath them. It works with friends, co-workers, even strangers. Someone tells you about a rough day? Don't just nod, ask how it made them feel. You'll see their shoulders drop. Their voice will shift. They'll pause, and then speak from a deeper place. And when people feel seen on that level, they don't forget it. It's also a tool of persuasion. When someone shares a belief or decision, asking this question uncovers emotional motivators. You gain clarity, not just on what they think, but why it matters to them. 3. Sit on the edge of your seat equals engagement signal. Body language often speaks louder than words. When you sit slouched back in your chair, arms crossed, eyes darting around, what message are you sending? Disinterest, disconnection. But when you lean forward and sit on the edge of your seat, your body says something completely different. I'm present. I'm curious. I care. This small physical shift instantly changes how people perceive you. It signals high engagement, attentiveness, and even enthusiasm, without you needing to say a word. People naturally gravitate toward those who seem invested in them. They'll mirror your energy, open up more, and feel like what they are saying actually matters. But this technique doesn't just affect others, it rewires your own state of mind. When you lean forward slightly, your brain interprets it as a sign of focus. Your posture influences your psychology. Suddenly, you're listening better, thinking faster, and reacting more intelligently. It's the posture of students eager to learn, athletes locked into a game, or professionals negotiating at peak performance. Use this in interviews, presentations, intense conversations, or even on a first date. It's a nonverbal way of saying, "You have my full attention." And attention is one of the rarest and most valuable currencies in human interaction. The best part? It's incredibly simple. No script to memorize, no awkward technique. Just shift your weight forward and let your body do the talking. Because in a distracted world, those who lean in, even just a few inches, stand out the most. 4. Confess first, then ask, disarming honesty. Want someone to let their guard down? Don't start with a demand. Start with vulnerability. When you confess something first, an insecurity, a limitation, even a small failure, you create a human-to-human bridge. You send a signal, "I'm not perfect, and I don't expect you to be either." This disarms people. It melts defensiveness. It shifts the tone of the conversation from combative to collaborative. Let's say you need to ask a favor or admit you forgot something. Instead of diving into excuses or justifications, try saying, "This is a bit awkward, but I need your help." Or, "I should have done this earlier, I own that." That moment of unfiltered truth changes the whole interaction. It feels real. And real is rare. This technique is often used in high-stakes negotiations and therapy. It works because of a psychological principle called reciprocal vulnerability. When you open up first, others feel compelled to match your level of honesty. It's how trust is built almost instantly. Politicians, leaders, and charismatic communicators use this all the time. They'll admit a flaw right before making a bold request. It makes them relatable, human, and harder to resist. But the key is sincerity. Fake vulnerability backfires. People can smell manipulation. So share something real, something small, honest, and a little raw. Then follow up with your ask. You'll be amazed how quickly people shift from skepticism to support. Because when you go first, others follow. Especially when it comes to trust. 5. Say, "Most people don't know this." Humans are wired for curiosity. It's like a mental itch that needs to be scratched. And few phrases scratch that itch better than, "Most people don't know this." It's a psychological hook, a whisper to the brain that says, "Hey, you're about to get secret information. Stay tuned." This phrase taps into something called information gap theory. When someone hears that a piece of knowledge exists, but they don't have it, their brain immediately wants to close the gap. It triggers attention, interest, and the desire to lean in. It's how great storytellers, copywriters, and influencers pull people in without trying too hard. Use it before you share a fact, a story, or even an insight about someone's behavior. For example, most people don't know this, but first impressions are formed in under 1/10 of a second. Now you've got them thinking, listening, and most importantly, respecting what you have to say. It's also a subtle power move. When you frame what you're saying as rare or privileged knowledge, you elevate your perceived authority. You're not just sharing a thought, you're revealing a secret. And secrets carry status. But don't overuse it. If everything is little known, nothing is. Instead, deploy it like a secret weapon, sparingly, strategically, and with genuine value behind what follows. In a noisy world, the sentence, "Most people don't know this," isn't just an opener. It's a magnet. 6. Use humor first, logic later. If you start with facts, people's brains activate their defenses. They analyze. They judge. They compare. But if you start with humor, the brain does something magical. It relaxes. Humor creates warmth. It tells the brain, "This isn't a threat. This person is safe. I can lower my guard." That's why some of the best communicators in the world, politicians, TED speakers, trial lawyers, open with a joke. Not because they are trying to entertain, but because they are trying to connect. Laughter is social glue. It synchronizes brain activity, releases endorphins, and even temporarily suspends ego and resistance. And once that happens, your logic, your argument, idea, or request lands more softly. It's already inside the gates. This is especially useful in persuasive conversations. Want to change someone's mind? Don't start with charts. Start with charm. Crack a clever line that shows you're human. Make them smile, then make your case. It's also a confidence signal. Humor shows that you're comfortable, and people are drawn to those who seem at ease. It suggests emotional intelligence, flexibility, and warmth, all of which are persuasive assets. But here's the catch: the humor must feel natural. If it's forced or mean-spirited, it backfires. Self-deprecating humor, situational observations, or witty contrasts work best. So lead with a laugh, follow with your point. Because when people are smiling, they're not resisting. 7. Comment on the atmosphere, not them. Let's say you're meeting someone for the first time. You want to break the ice, but saying something about their clothes or looks might come off weird or too personal. So what do? You use one of the most disarming psychological techniques. You comment on the shared environment. Instead of "you look tired," say, "the lighting in here makes everyone look like they haven't slept in days." Instead of "you're really quiet," say, "this place feels strangely calm today." See what happened? You removed direct personal pressure and still acknowledged the vibe. This approach taps into a powerful human instinct. Shared experience equals shared trust. When you and someone else are in it together, whether it's awkward silence or chaotic energy, it creates a kind of mini bond. You're not probing them, you're noticing the world with them. It's also incredibly useful in high-stress settings, interviews, parties, tense meetings. A simple line like, "Wow, this room feels intense right now," can cut through pressure like a knife. The other person relaxes because they no longer feel isolated in their discomfort. It's observational without being intrusive, insightful without being invasive. It opens doors without knocking too hard. Commenting on the atmosphere is a subtle art of psychological mirroring, and it's far more effective than you'd think. It tells people, "I'm aware. I'm with you. Let's lower the walls together." 8. Mirror their energy, then lead it. Humans are hardwired to mirror. Watch any engaged conversation. People start using similar words, gestures, even breathing patterns. It's subconscious rapport building. But here's the twist: if you can mirror someone's energy intentionally, you can also guide it. Let's say someone is nervous, agitated, or speaking rapidly. Instead of instantly trying to calm them down, match their tone and pace for a moment. Nod. Echo a few of their words. Let them feel seen. That creates psychological synchrony, a state where they subconsciously feel like you're on their wavelength. Then, slowly, shift your tone. Speak a little more calmly. Breathe more deeply. Lower your voice slightly. As you change your state, they will start to follow. This is called pacing and leading, a technique rooted in both NLP and classic psychology. It works in negotiations, arguments, therapy, teaching, almost any social setting. People don't follow strangers, they follow those who feel familiar. Mirroring creates that familiarity. Leading shows direction. The mistake most people make? Trying to change someone's state before building rapport. That feels like resistance. But when you mirror first, change feels natural. They're not being manipulated, they are being understood. So next time you want to influence a mood, don't push. Sync. Reflect. Then guide. Because the best leaders don't shove, they invite. 8. Mirror their energy, then lead it. Humans are hardwired to mirror. Watch any engaged conversation. People start using similar words, gestures, even breathing patterns. It's subconscious rapport building. But here's the twist: if you can mirror someone's energy intentionally, you can also guide it. Let's say someone is nervous, agitated, or speaking rapidly. Instead of instantly trying to calm them down, match their tone and pace for a moment. Nod. Echo a few of their words. Let them feel seen. That creates psychological synchrony, a state where they subconsciously feel like you're on their wavelength. Then, slowly, shift your tone. Speak a little more calmly. Breathe more deeply. Lower your voice slightly. As you change your state, they will start to follow. This is called pacing and leading, a technique rooted in both NLP and classic psychology. It works in negotiations, arguments, therapy, teaching, almost any social setting. People don't follow strangers, they follow those who feel familiar. Mirroring creates that familiarity. Leading shows direction. The mistake most people make? Trying to change someone's state before building rapport. That feels like resistance. But when you mirror first, change feels natural. They're not being manipulated, they are being understood. So next time you want to influence a mood, don't push. Sync. Reflect. Then guide. Because the best leaders don't shove, they invite. 9. Lower the volume to command silence. It's instinctive to think you need to raise your voice to command attention, but the opposite is often far more powerful. When you lower your voice, especially in a moment of noise, tension, or chaos, people don't tune you out. They lean in. Why? Because it breaks the pattern. In a world filled with volume, notifications, chatter, arguments, quietness becomes a signal of control. Whispering or speaking just above a whisper creates mystery and gravity. It forces the listener to work a little harder to hear you, and that slight effort makes them more mentally invested. This technique taps into the psychology of authority. True leaders don't need to shout. They speak calmly, slowly, and softly, because they know people will listen. In fact, the quietest voice in the room is often the most respected. It suggests that the speaker isn't trying to dominate, they're already confident in their presence. This is especially effective in emotional situations. When someone's angry or spiraling, a lowered voice creates contrast. It says, "I'm not threatened. I'm in control. You're safe to come down now." Use this in meetings, confrontations, classrooms, even storytelling. Start loud, then drop your voice. You'll feel the room shift. Eyes will focus. Breathing will slow. Silence will follow. It's not about being meek. It's about being deliberate. Because when everyone else is yelling, the one who whispers becomes the anchor. 10. Act like you already belong. Confidence isn't always earned, sometimes it's projected. And the fastest way to project it? Behave like you already belong. Whether you're walking into a boardroom, a party, a gym, or a new job, your body language and energy set the tone before you say a word. Most people enter new spaces waiting for approval. They hang back, observe, and ask for permission, usually without realizing it. But that hesitation sends a message, "I'm unsure if I fit here." And the room, in turn, mirrors that doubt. But if you walk in with casual confidence, something changes. You look around like the space is familiar. You smile at people like you've met them before. You take your seat like you've always sat there. It creates a psychological phenomenon called social proof in reverse. If you behave like you belong, others assume you do. This isn't arrogance, it's self-authorizing presence. It works in dating, networking, public speaking, and even group dynamics. People follow those who act like leaders before they are crowned as one. And it's not about faking confidence, it's about borrowing it until it becomes real. Your body posture feeds your brain, which then feeds your behavior. Confidence isn't a switch, it's a signal loop. So next time you're in unfamiliar territory, don't wait for someone to say welcome. Say it with your actions. Stand tall. Walk in. Breathe deep. Because belonging doesn't begin when others allow it. It begins when you decide it. 11. The 5-to-1 ratio rule. Want to build lasting relationships? Master the 5:1 rule. For every one negative comment, action, or moment, you need 5 positive ones to keep the relationship healthy and thriving. This idea comes from psychological research on marriages and long-term dynamics, particularly the work of Dr. John Gottman. He found that couples who maintained a 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions were significantly more likely to stay together, be happy, and recover from conflict faster. Why 5? Because negative interactions hit harder. They linger longer, sink deeper. We're wired to remember pain more vividly than pleasure. So to balance out one sharp word, eye roll, or critical remark, we need multiple signals of warmth, appreciation, or connection. This doesn't mean being fake or overly sweet. It means being mindful. A genuine compliment. A quick thank you. A shared laugh. Even a warm glance across the room can count as a positive interaction. It's about emotional deposits, tiny moments that build trust, connection, and goodwill. This rule works in romance, friendships, teams, parenting, customer service, and leadership. It's a universal principle. People flourish where they feel seen, appreciated, and safe. So when you feel tension rising, don't just apologize once and move on. Layer in positivity. Rebuild the emotional bank. Because relationships are like scales. And the weight of one criticism needs the counterbalance of 5 acts of care to even out. 12. Ask about childhood equals instant connection. If you want to bypass small talk and create a fast, intimate bond with someone, ask about their childhood. It sounds simple, maybe even random, but it's one of the most powerful psychological shortcuts to connection. Why? Because childhood is where identity begins. It's where values are shaped, stories are formed, and emotional memories are buried. When you ask someone, "What were you like as a kid?" or "What's one of your favorite childhood memories?" you invite them to time travel, back to a vulnerable, formative version of themselves. And here's the magic. When people talk about their childhood, they drop their adult masks. They become reflective. Nostalgic. More open. You'll see their voice soften, their eyes shift, their defenses lower. They're no longer presenting a version of themselves, they're revealing it. This is especially effective with people who seem guarded or overly professional. Ask about their hobbies as a kid, their family rituals, or what they dreamed of becoming. You'll see a side of them few others get to see. It also creates shared humanity. No matter how different we seem on the surface, we all had moments of fear, joy, awkwardness, and wonder as children. Talking about those moments bridges gaps faster than any clever adult question ever could. So forget the boring "what do you do?" next time. Instead, say, "Tell me something weird you loved as a kid." You'll be surprised how quickly strangers become familiar. 13. Thank them for the thought, not the action. Most people are used to being thanked for what they did. They sent a message, helped out, gave you something. But when you thank someone not just for the action, but for the thought behind it, it hits deeper. It's a rare kind of gratitude that shows you really saw them. Instead of just saying, "Thanks for the ride," say, "Thanks for thinking of me when you offered." You didn't have to, and it means a lot. That's not just politeness, it's emotional recognition. This technique triggers something powerful in the brain, the feeling of being valued for your intention, not just your behavior. And people want to be seen for more than what they do, they want to be seen for why they do it. It makes them feel emotionally significant. Use this with coworkers, family, friends, even strangers. When someone checks on you, opens a door, or makes a kind suggestion, look beyond the act and say something like, "It means a lot that you even thought to ask." That level of appreciation builds trust. It deepens bonds. It turns a routine thank you into something personal and memorable. It's not about exaggeration, It's about specificity. The more personal your gratitude, the more impactful it becomes. So next time someone helps you, pause. Think about the thought that came before the action. Then thank them for that. That's how you move from polite to profound. 14. Say, "That's exactly what I would have said." This line is deceptively simple, but incredibly powerful. Saying "that's exactly what I would have said" gives someone a jolt of validation, one that hits both their ego and their heart. Why? Because it's not just agreement. It's alignment. You're not just saying, "Good point." You're saying, "You read my mind. We think alike." And that creates instant rapport. This phrase taps into the psychology of mirroring and identity reinforcement. People want to feel smart, perceptive, and in tune with others, especially those they respect. When you echo their thoughts, you tell them, "You nailed it. I'm with you." That makes them feel good about themselves and about you. It's especially effective in group dynamics or sensitive conversations. It strengthens alliances, softens egos, and builds momentum in discussions. Even if you had a similar thought, letting them take the credit makes you seem generous, open-minded, and collaborative. But be genuine. Don't throw it around aimlessly, or it'll lose power. Use it when you truly resonate with someone's statement or when you see that they need affirmation. Sometimes, just that line is enough to shift the entire tone of a conversation. It works in friendships, leadership, negotiations, even in arguments, when you want to cool the fire. It says, "We're not opponents, we're in sync." In a world where everyone wants to be heard, this phrase says, "You were." Loud and clear. 15-2, for example. "Even if you've never done this before, we'll guide you. Even if it doesn't work the first time, you'll learn something. Even if you feel nervous, that's totally normal." Now, instead of fighting your argument, the listener feels understood. Their fear was named, and that lowers their resistance. This is based on a psychological concept called objection inoculation. When you address a concern before it's raised, the listener has fewer reasons to reject you. You've shown that you're thoughtful, realistic, and trustworthy. That creates compliance through care. "Even if" is also powerful for self-talk. When facing your own doubts, saying, "Even if I fail, I'll be proud I tried," rewires the way you interpret risk. You become more resilient, more willing to act. It's not about blind optimism. It's about acknowledged courage. You're saying, "Yes, this could be hard, and yes, you can still do it." So next time you want to move someone, or yourself, forward, don't silence the fear. Say "even if" and move anyway. 16. When unsure, repeat the last thing they said. One of the smartest things you can do when you're stuck in a conversation, especially in high pressure or emotional moments, is incredibly simple: repeat the last thing they said. It may feel like you're stalling, but what you're actually doing is giving them the gift of reflection. You're saying, "I hear you. Let's sit with that for a second." This technique taps into something called the echo effect. When you repeat someone's exact words, or very close to them, their brain lights up with affirmation. It feels validating, like you're tuning into their wavelength. But there's more. Repetition makes people elaborate. They'll often go deeper, clarify, or adjust their thought because you mirrored it. Example: them, "I just feel like no one listens to me." You, "No one listens to you." Watch what happens. They might clarify, "Yeah, especially at work. My manager always cuts me off." Boom, you've just unlocked more context without asking a single question. It's also a powerful trick when buying time. In negotiations or interviews, repeating the last phrase gives you a mental breather while still appearing engaged. The key is tone. Don't sound robotic. Make it sound like you're curious, not parroting. Add a pause or upward inflection to make it feel reflective. In moments of tension or confusion, repeating their words brings the focus back to them and gives you clarity too. Sometimes the best way to respond is not with a new thought, but with their own, handed back gently. 17. Look at their shoes, read their personality. It sounds like a party trick, but it's backed by research. You can tell a surprising amount about someone just by looking at their shoes. This isn't just fashion commentary, it's a shortcut into personality psychology. In a study published in the Journal of Research in Personality, participants were asked to guess strangers' personalities based solely on photos of their shoes. The results? Shockingly accurate. People could determine things like introversion, extroversion, attachment style, agreeableness, and even income bracket just from footwear. Why? Because shoes are where comfort meets self-expression. They are practical, so they reflect priorities. They are visible, so they signal identity. Someone who wears pristine, expensive designer shoes? Likely status conscious. Scuffed but well cared for sneakers? Detail-oriented but laid back. Crocs in public? Confident, carefree, maybe rebellious. Worn in hiking boots? Adventurous, outdoorsy, independent. Looking at someone's shoes gives you a non-verbal data point. It's not foolproof, but it's a powerful conversation starter or social reading tool. It also makes you more observant, which itself makes people think you're more perceptive. Want to connect with someone fast? Compliment their shoes, genuinely. Not nice kicks, but those look like they've seen some miles. Are you into hiking? That opens people up. It says, I notice something that most people don't. And here's the twist. The shoes you choose also speak for you. They say something long before you speak. So next time you want to know who someone really is, don't just look in their eyes. Look at their feet. 18. Use we instead of you. Words shape reality, and the word we is one of the most powerful tools for creating instant unity. While you points at someone else, possibly creating distance or blame, we pulls both of you onto the same side of the table. It transforms confrontation into collaboration. Imagine you're giving feedback. You need to work on how you handle pressure. Now try. We all struggle with pressure, and maybe we can find a better way to manage it together. See the difference? One feels like a critique. The other feels like a team effort. This technique is rooted in something called inclusive framing. When you use we, you frame the challenge or goal as shared. That creates a sense of partnership, which increases cooperation and reduces defensiveness. It also builds psychological safety. People feel less alone, less targeted, and more willing to engage. It works in leadership, conflict resolution, teaching, parenting, even dating. We should get better at this. Sounds miles more comforting than, you always mess this up. It's not manipulative, it's empathetic communication. And here's the secret. The brain is deeply tribal. It wants to belong. When you speak in terms of us, you're activating the part of the brain wired for connection and protection. Use it in high-stakes conversations. Use it in small talk. Use it when trying to repair or inspire. Because when you say we, you're not just changing the sentence. You're changing the relationship. 19. Say their name at goodbye. Names are magic. They're the most personal sound in any language. Dale Carnegie once said, "A person's name is to that person the sweetest sound in any language." And while using someone's name during a conversation is powerful, using it at the end, right before goodbye, is even more impactful. Why? Because it leaves an emotional echo. Saying someone's name right before you part ways leaves them with a final, personal imprint. It's not just CYA or take care. It's take care, Sarah. That one word makes it feel intentional, warm, and respectful. It makes the moment linger in a subtle but meaningful way. This is a form of what's called the recency effect. The brain remembers the last part of an interaction most vividly. So if your final words are personal, people walk away feeling seen. This feeling colors their entire memory of the interaction. It works especially well after first meetings, interviews, networking events, or even tough conversations. The name acts like a soft period at the end of the sentence, a moment that says, "You matter enough for me to remember." It also trains your brain to be more attentive. Remembering and using names boosts your social intelligence, making others perceive you as charismatic, thoughtful, and confident. So don't just say goodbye. Say their name. It takes 1 second, and it's worth 10 times more than silence. 20. Plant ideas as questions. Want to be persuasive without sounding pushy? Use questions. Not just any questions, questions that secretly contain the idea you want to introduce. This is the art of planting ideas as questions, and it's one of the most elegant forms of influence. Let's say you want someone to consider a new approach. You could say, "You should try doing it this way." Or you could ask, "Have you ever wondered what might happen if you tried it this way?" Boom, resistance drops. Curiosity rises. This technique works because of something called the Socratic method, a classical form of dialogue where you lead people to conclusions by asking the right questions. When you tell someone what to think, their defenses go up. But when you guide them to the idea through a question, it becomes their idea. And people trust their own ideas more than anyone else's. You're not imposing. You're inviting. You're not fighting their ego, you're aligning with it. It's especially useful in leadership, mentoring, parenting, and negotiation. Want someone to take responsibility? Ask, "What do you think could have worked better?" Want them to reflect on bad behavior? Try, "How do you think that came across to them?" You're not cornering them. You're letting them walk into clarity on their own. Because the best ideas are never forced. They're planted, quietly, strategically, and with just enough space to grow. 21. Smile first, feel later. It might sound backwards, but science confirms it. You can feel happier just by smiling, even if you don't feel like it. This phenomenon is known as the facial feedback hypothesis, the idea that your facial expressions don't just reflect your emotions, they help shape them. When you smile, even if it's forced, your brain receives signals that something positive is happening. It responds by releasing feel-good chemicals like dopamine and serotonin, which actually elevate your mood. In other words, sometimes the emotion follows the behavior, not the other way around. So instead of waiting to feel good to smile, smile first, and let the feeling catch up. This can be especially useful in stressful situations, awkward meetings, or moments when you're nervous. Smiling not only lifts your own mood but also influences how others perceive you. It says, "I'm approachable. I'm in control. I'm okay." People mirror facial expressions unconsciously, so your smile can start a ripple effect of positivity. One smile can shift the energy of an entire room. You don't need to fake it, you just need to initiate it. Think of it as emotional priming. When you smile, you're warming up your inner world for a better experience. You're telling your nervous system, "Relax. Things are good." So the next time you feel off or disconnected, try this. Take a deep breath, raise the corners of your mouth, even just a little. Then wait. You might just feel the shift from the outside in. 22. Mirror their breathing to calm them. When someone is anxious, upset, or tense, their breath becomes shallow, fast, and erratic. If you want to help them calm down, the fastest way isn't through words, it's through breath. And not just yours, but theirs. This technique is called respiratory mirroring. You subtly match the other person's breathing pattern, pace, depth, rhythm. You don't make it obvious. You just sync up. When you do this, something fascinating happens. Their body starts to recognize your calmer state through nonverbal rapport. Once you're matched, Begin to slowly regulate your own breath. Longer inhales, deeper exhales, softer rhythm. Because you're in sync, their nervous system will automatically start to follow yours. It's a primal cue, you're safe now. You can breathe like me. This method bypasses logic. You don't need to say, calm down, which rarely works. You let the body lead. This technique is often used in crisis counseling, therapy, and even animal handling. It works because it's non-confrontational and deeply empathetic. It's especially helpful in arguments, tense meetings, or comforting a child. If someone's overwhelmed, sit near them, take a few matched breaths, then guide the rhythm downward. You'll often see shoulders drop, voices soften, and clarity return. It's not magic, it's biology. So next time you sense stress, don't just speak reassurance. Breathe it. Let them breathe with you. And slowly, watch peace return. 23. Touch the table to anchor attention. In a conversation, especially one that's drifting, heated, or unfocused, you can instantly reset the room with a subtle but powerful move. Touch the table. Place your fingers or hand flat on the table when making a key point. This anchors attention, both literally and psychologically. The brain interprets the gesture as, this part matters. It's a moment of physical punctuation, and people subconsciously snap to attention when it happens. This works due to a concept called embodied cognition, where gestures influence perception. A deliberate movement like touching the table signals that you're grounded, certain, and present. It's non-verbal authority. You're not banging the table or being aggressive. You're claiming space. Great speakers, CEOs, and negotiators use this all the time. They pause, lower their voice, and place a hand on the table right as they deliver the most important idea. It creates stillness. Everyone leans in. You can also use it to regain control. If a conversation spirals or gets emotionally charged, a calm, grounded gesture resets the tone. It says, let's come back to center. Even better, combine it with intentional eye contact and a brief pause. That triangle, gesture, gaze, silence, is the golden formula for capturing focus. So next time you're talking and feel the energy slipping, don't raise your voice. Touch the table. Own the moment. And let the room come to you. 24. Break the script, control the moment. Life is full of invisible scripts, greetings, interviews, meetings, first dates. People expect certain responses and behaviors. But if you want to be memorable, influential, and in control, learn to break the script. When you interrupt a predictable pattern, you create a pattern interrupt, a psychological jolt that forces the brain to wake up and pay attention. The result? You gain control of the interaction because now you're writing the script. Instead of "How are you?" try "What's the best thing that happened to you today?" Instead of "Nice to meet you," try "I've been looking forward to this moment." That unexpected twist? It creates novelty, and novelty equals attention. This technique works in persuasion, storytelling, interviews, flirting, anywhere people are sleepwalking through social patterns. Break the script and suddenly, you're memorable, maybe even magnetic. It's not about being weird or random. It's about being deliberately different. Think of it like jazz. You don't abandon the structure, you riff off it. And people love that kind of energy. It makes them feel alive. Breaking the script also gives you control. When you start a conversation your way, you set the tone. You're not reacting, you're leading. So the next time you feel trapped in small talk or formal stiffness, say something unexpected. Smile. Watch their eyes light up. Because when you break the script, you don't just change the moment. You own it. 25. Echo their words, earn their trust. People want to be heard, but more than that, they want to feel understood. One of the fastest ways to build trust with anyone is by subtly echoing their words back to them. This doesn't mean copying or mimicking like a parrot. It means reflecting their key phrases, vocabulary, or emotional tone. Let's say someone says, "I'm just overwhelmed with everything right now." You respond, "Totally. Being overwhelmed like that can really drain you." Notice what just happened? You didn't offer advice or a solution, you reflected. And that's what builds rapport. This technique works because of something called the chameleon effect. When you mirror someone's behavior or speech, they feel more connected to you, even if they don't consciously realize it. Their brain recognizes itself in you, and that creates comfort. It also shows active listening. In a world full of people waiting to speak, echoing is proof you actually listened, and that's magnetic. This strategy is incredibly useful in sales, therapy, relationships, and negotiations. You can echo their values, so what matters most to you is trust, their feelings, you're saying it feels unfair, or even their phrasing, it's like you said, kind of a storm of things at once. Don't overdo it or it'll feel mechanical. Just drop in occasional reflective words or phrases. Because when people hear their own thoughts come from your mouth, something shifts. They trust you. Not because you impressed them, but because you heard them. 26. Keep hands visible at all times. Your hands are some of the most communicative parts of your body, and the moment you hide them, people subconsciously become less trusting. It's primal. In early human interaction, if someone's hands were hidden, it meant danger, maybe a weapon or deceit. If they were visible, safety, honesty. That instinct still lives in us today. Studies in nonverbal communication show that speakers who keep their hands open and visible are seen as more credible, likable, and persuasive. Those who keep their hands in pockets, behind their back, or under the table. Less so, even if they are saying all the right things. When your hands are visible, people feel like they can read your intentions. They're not scanning for danger, they're relaxing into connection. This is especially true in job interviews, public speaking, negotiations, and any form of leadership. If you gesture with your hands, palms mostly facing up or outward, you subconsciously signal transparency and openness. You don't even have to say anything new. The hands do the convincing. It also affects how you feel. Hiding your hands often comes from nerves. Keeping them visible or actively gesturing makes you feel more confident, because posture feeds psychology. So whether you're sitting at a table or standing on a stage, remember, hands where they can see them. Use them with purpose. Let them tell your story. Because sometimes the most powerful words come from your fingers, not your mouth. 27. Use the spotlight effect to own a room. Most people walk into a room thinking, everyone's watching me. That fear, that self-consciousness, is called the spotlight effect. But here's the twist, nobody's watching you. They're all thinking about themselves. Once you realize that, you can flip the spotlight effect into power. Instead of fearing the attention, own it. Walk in as if people are watching, because now you're using the spotlight consciously. Straighten your posture. Walk slower. Make deliberate eye contact. Smile like you know a secret. Speak just a little more clearly than usual. The key is that you're not becoming fake. You're becoming intentional. You're no longer hiding or hoping to disappear, you're stepping into the moment. This shift turns fear into focus. Because here's the truth, when you act like you belong, people adjust their perception to match. It's called enclothed cognition, when your external behavior changes your internal mindset, and vice versa. When you feel like the spotlight is on you, don't shrink. Rise. And if your heart's pounding? Good. It means the moment matters. Use that energy. Let it sharpen you, not stop you. Whether it's a classroom, boardroom, date, or stage, step into the light. Own your space. Because the spotlight isn't your enemy. It's your invitation. 28. Let them correct you, then they trust you. It might sound strange, but one of the best ways to earn someone's trust is to let them correct you. It flips the usual script. Instead of trying to prove you're right, you give them space to feel smart, informed, and in control. Let's say you're discussing a topic and you intentionally, or even accidentally, get a small detail wrong. The other person says, "Actually, I think it was in 2018, not 2020. Instead of getting defensive, you smile and say, "You're right, I forgot about that." What just happened? You showed humility. You let them win. And that small win makes people like you more, not less. This works because of something called the pratfall effect. People actually find you more likable when you show small flaws or make small mistakes, as long as you're competent overall. It humanizes you. It removes the armor. Even better, it builds psychological reciprocity. When someone gets to correct you, they're more likely to trust you, listen to you, and even follow your lead later, because they feel like you listen to them. Use this technique strategically. Ask questions you may already know the answer to. Allow small clarifications. Celebrate their knowledge. You're not weakening your position, you're strengthening the relationship. Because people don't bond over who's the smartest. They bond when they feel seen, respected, and heard. Even if it's just about a date, a name, or a tiny fact. 29. Pause before you answer equals authority. When someone asks you a question, especially in a high-stakes or challenging moment, your instinct might be to answer quickly. But one of the most powerful things you can do is pause. Just 2 or 3 seconds of silence before you respond can completely shift the dynamic. That moment of stillness signals confidence, control, and authority. Why does it work? Because fast answers often feel reactive, emotional, or even insecure. A pause, on the other hand, feels deliberate. It tells the other person, "I heard you. I'm thinking." You're going to get a thoughtful answer. That's magnetic. In psychology, this is tied to the power of delayed response. Leaders, negotiators, and great speakers all use it. A pause shows you're not rattled, you're composed. It also slows the pace of the conversation, bringing both parties out of reaction and into reflection. It's especially powerful in conflict. When someone challenges you or makes a sharp comment, don't snap back. Pause. Look at them. Breathe. Let the silence sit. Often, it makes them uncomfortable, and that's when they soften. Even in presentations or storytelling, a pause before your punchline or main point builds tension and focus. The room leans in. Anticipation rises. You don't need to speak faster to be heard. You don't need to fill every silence to seem smart. Sometimes the most authoritative voice is the one that waits to speak. 30. Confess first, then ask, disarming honesty. If you want someone to open up, agree to something, or even forgive you, lead with honest vulnerability. Say the thing they expect you to hide. In persuasion, this is called a confession opener, and it's far more effective than a pitch or excuse. Example: instead of saying, "I'd like you to help me with this," try, "This is kind of awkward, but I could really use your help with something." Or instead of hiding your nervousness, "I'm a bit nervous to ask this, but I didn't want to miss the chance." That admission softens the room. It lowers the defenses of the person you're speaking to. They realize you're not trying to manipulate or perform. You're being real. And realness is rare. This works because of the disarming honesty effect. When people sense you're exposing yourself emotionally, even just a little, they instinctively feel more connected to you. It activates empathy, lowers suspicion, and builds trust fast. It also works in conflict. Saying, "I probably didn't handle that well," before an argument takes the wind out of their anger. It shows you're self-aware, not combative. And guess what? You don't lose power by confessing. You gain credibility. People can't attack what you've already owned. So next time you want someone's time, help, or forgiveness, don't hide the awkwardness. Say it out loud. Because when you lead with honesty, you lead with humanity. 32. Sit diagonally, not head-on. Ever noticed how formal and confrontational sitting face-to-face can feel? It's the classic setup for interviews, debates, and arguments. Now contrast that with sitting diagonally, like two friends chatting at a coffee shop corner table. The vibe? Instantly more relaxed, open, and cooperative. This is the power of angle-based psychology. The physical position of bodies influences the emotional tone of interaction. When you sit head-on, especially across a table, it can feel like a battle of wills, even if the conversation is friendly. But sitting diagonally creates shared space, not opposing sides. You're no longer facing off. You're facing with. You're literally on the same side. This is especially powerful in sensitive discussions, feedback sessions, conflict resolution, negotiations, or heart-to-hearts. Just shifting your chair slightly to the side can reduce tension, increase eye contact comfort, and make both parties more emotionally available. It also lowers defensiveness. People feel less scrutinized and more seen, rather than judged. That's why great therapists, coaches, and mediators use this trick. It's spatial empathy. Even in casual settings, this trick works wonders. Try it during your next date, lunch meeting, or even while helping a friend. You'll notice walls drop without a single word. Because sometimes changing the angle changes the entire energy of the conversation. 33. The first word wins, primacy effect. The first thing you say in any conversation, meeting, or interaction sets the tone, and often defines the outcome. That's the primacy effect at work. The brain remembers the first impression more strongly than anything that follows. It's not just about what you say, it's about how early you say it. Think about it. When someone greets you with confidence, warmth, or authority in the first 10 seconds, your mind labels them leader, charming, credible. That label sticks throughout the rest of the conversation. Now flip it. If someone starts with hesitation, rambling, or doubt, it's much harder to recover. The brain has already filed them under uncertain or insecure. The key? Be intentional with your first word, first sentence, first moment. Practice strong openers that reflect the tone you want to set: friendly, curious, assertive, or inviting. Whether it's a job interview, a first date, or pitching an idea, your opening line is your psychological handshake. Examples: I've been really looking forward to this conversation. Can I share something I've been thinking about all day? I love that you said that, it sparked something. Notice how those lines don't just open, they lead. They invite engagement. They make you memorable. So before your next interaction, don't just prepare what you'll say. Prepare what you'll say first. Because in most conversations, the first word doesn't just start the story. It wins it. 34. The last word lingers, recency bias. Just as the first word creates the first impression, the last word creates the lasting one. That's the recency bias, the brain's tendency to remember what came last more vividly than what came in the middle. In psychology, this principle is so strong that it shapes entire memories. You could have a mediocre experience, but if it ends well, you'll likely remember it positively. Conversely, a great conversation that ends awkwardly? Suddenly the whole memory feels off. That's why the last thing you say, in a meeting, in a pitch, in a date, even in an argument, is gold. It's the emotional takeaway, the closing impression, the echo in someone's mind. The smart move? End with purpose. Leave them with a thought, a compliment, a call to action, or even a moment of silence. Something that feels final and deliberate. Example endings. I'm really glad we had this talk, genuinely. Let's both think on that before we move forward. Thanks for hearing me out. It meant a lot. When you control the ending, you control the story they carry home. This is especially important in difficult conversations. Even if things get heated, you can reclaim the memory by ending with a grounded, human line like, "I know we see it differently, but I respect you for being honest." So remember, every interaction has a last sentence. Don't waste it. Because the final word isn't just punctuation. It's the mic drop. 35. Use open gestures to invite openness. Your body speaks long before your mouth does, and one of its clearest messages is this: open versus closed. If your arms are crossed, your hands are hidden, or your posture is tight, the body says, stay away. But open gestures? Palms visible, arms relaxed, shoulders open? That body says, come in. You're welcome here. This is more than just good body language. It's rooted in our evolutionary psychology. Open palms have always signaled safety, honesty, and non-aggression. It's a gesture that disarms, calms, and builds instant trust. When you use open gestures while speaking, people feel like you're not hiding anything. They subconsciously believe you more, even if the words are identical. Studies show that leaders who gesture with open hands are rated as more persuasive and likable than those who don't. This is critical during pitches, interviews, coaching, or anytime you want someone to truly listen. It invites connection, not confrontation. The beauty is, you don't have to exaggerate. Just become aware of when you're closing off, clutching notes, folding arms, pocketing hands. Then shift. Try this. Next time you're speaking, gesture naturally with your palms up occasionally. It signals vulnerability, transparency, and confidence at the same time. Because the more open your body feels, the more open their heart becomes. 36. Count to 3 before responding to emotion. When someone hits you with an emotional comment, anger, fear, sarcasm, your body reacts before your brain does. That's the fight or flight system lighting up. And if you respond too quickly, it's often with words you regret. But if you train yourself to do one thing, pause for 3 seconds, you change everything. That pause gives your brain time to catch up to your body. In those 3 seconds, emotion cools. Logic returns. Breath settles. And most importantly, you gain control. This is called a regulation pause, and it's a powerful tool in emotional intelligence. Instead of reacting, you respond. That tiny delay becomes a shield and a superpower. In conversations, those 3 seconds feel long. But from the outside, they look like wisdom. People see you as thoughtful, grounded, and calm under pressure. You can use this with strangers, family, co-workers, anyone. Especially during arguments or when someone says something hurtful. Don't fire back. Don't flinch. Just pause. 1, 2, 3. Then speak with intention. It also works for internal emotions. When you're overwhelmed, before acting, pause for 3. Give your brain the space to choose, not react. Because real power isn't in the sharp comeback. It's in the silent second where you choose how to come back. 37. Give the gift first, reciprocity effect. Humans are wired for fairness. When someone gives us something, anything, we feel an instinctual urge to give something back. This psychological response is called the reciprocity effect, and it's one of the most powerful tools of influence you can use. The best part? The gift doesn't need to be expensive. It can be a compliment, a helpful insight, a small favor, even a piece of gum. The moment you offer something without expecting a return, the other person feels an internal pull to even the scale. And that's where influence begins. This is why great negotiators offer concessions first. Why charismatic people compliment first. Why legendary hosts insist, Let me get this for you. They're not manipulating, they're triggering a natural social reflex. It's also why pushy sales tactics fail. They ask before giving. But if you give first, value, attention, kindness, then ask, the yes rate skyrockets. You can use this everywhere. Offer a useful tip before asking a favor. Share a resource before pitching an idea. Help someone before expecting help in return. Even in relationships, giving emotionally, presence, empathy, praise, often leads to deeper mutual care. But here's the trick, your gift must feel genuine. If it's calculated or forced, people sense it. True generosity works because it feels sincere. So lead every interaction by giving something first. Because when you give freely, people don't just remember you, they root for you. 38. Ask for opinions, not answers. If you want someone to open up, not shut down, don't ask for answers. Ask for opinions. Why? Because asking for an opinion makes people feel safe, respected, and important. It invites them to speak from their own experience, not to pass a test or defend a fact. That simple shift changes the entire emotional energy of a conversation. Imagine this. What's the right way to handle this? Equals pressure. What's your opinion on how to handle this? Equals respect. See the difference? When people are asked for facts, they worry about being wrong. But when asked for opinions, they relax into authenticity. This works wonders in meetings, feedback sessions, negotiations, even parenting. Asking, "What's your take on this?" or "How would you approach it?" gives the other person a sense of ownership. It turns a monologue into a collaboration. Psychologically, it taps into our desire to be seen as valuable thinkers. People love sharing their opinions, especially when they believe you genuinely care about hearing them. Even better, once someone gives you their opinion, they're more likely to back it later. You've engaged their ego, their logic, and their identity. That creates buy-in. So next time you need insight, support, or agreement, don't push for the right answer. Ask for the honest one. Because the fastest way to earn trust is to ask, "What do you think?" 39. Raise eyebrows when you see someone. It's a micro-expression. It lasts barely half a second. But when you raise your eyebrows slightly as someone enters a room or approaches you, it sends a powerful message. I see you. I recognize you. I'm glad you're here. It's called the eyebrow flash, and it's a universal human signal, seen across all cultures and even in primates. It's often paired with a quick smile, and it instantly builds connection, warmth, and non-verbal approval. Why is it so effective? Because it's subtle but primal. Our brains are constantly scanning for social cues. An eyebrow flash triggers the safe signal. It tells us we're not being ignored or rejected. And that makes people feel welcome. You don't need to exaggerate it. Just lift your brows slightly, naturally, when making eye contact. It works with friends, colleagues, strangers, even babies. It's the difference between someone walking toward you and thinking, "Are they happy to see me?" versus, "They are." This tiny move also makes you seem more socially confident. You're not hiding. You're greeting. You're leading the energy. Pair it with someone's name or a warm line. "There you are." With a quick eyebrow lift. "Hey, good to see you." Brows up, quick nod. It's almost invisible, but deeply felt. Because sometimes the most magnetic connections start with just a lift of your eyes. 40. Use their words in your reply. When someone says something meaningful and you respond using their exact words, a kind of magic happens. They feel heard, understood, and, most importantly, respected. This isn't just active listening. It's called verbal mirroring, a technique used in therapy, hostage negotiation, and elite sales. By repeating key words or phrases the other person just said, You're sending a subtle but powerful message. I get you. I'm paying attention. Example. Them, I'm just so burned out. You, yeah, that kind of burnout can be brutal. That reflection creates emotional alignment. It validates their inner world without judgment or advice. People crave this. In a world full of distractions and interruptions, being heard is rare. When you mirror someone's language, their brain lights up with a sense of connection. It's like you're speaking their dialect, even if you're saying something simple. This technique also helps in persuasion. When you use their phrasing, you're shaping your message in their framework, not yours. That makes it land deeper. It's especially useful in conflict. If someone says, I just want to be respected, and you respond with, so respect is what matters most here, walls go down. They feel seen. Don't overdo it, just echo moments that matter. Because when people hear their own words from your mouth, they feel at home in the conversation. 41. Look at their shoes, read their personality. People often believe that personality is revealed through words or facial expressions, but surprisingly, something as simple as a person's shoes can give you deep insight into who they are. Shoes are one of the most personal yet overlooked forms of self-expression. They are chosen every day, worn with consistency, and unlike clothes, people rarely change them throughout the day. Psychologists have found that certain traits can be guessed accurately just by looking at someone's footwear. Scuffed-up sneakers might suggest a laid-back or creative individual who values comfort and function over formality. Flashy, colorful shoes can indicate a bold, extroverted personality that enjoys attention and stands out from the crowd. Worn-out shoes that are still cared for might point to someone responsible, loyal, or even frugal. Clean, polished dress shoes can reflect conscientiousness or a desire to be seen as professional and put together. It's not just about the style, but the condition, brand, and how they are worn. People who are attentive to detail often take care of their shoes meticulously, while those more spontaneous might not even notice their shoes are untied. This isn't about judging someone, but about quietly reading the signals they already offer. Observing shoes allows you to build an impression without saying a word, and that can give you an unexpected advantage in conversations, interviews, or meetings. Sometimes the loudest stories are told not through voice or posture, but through the things people stand in all day. Their shoes, quite literally, walk you into who they are. 42. Use we instead of you. The words we choose shape the way others feel, and one of the most powerful shifts in language is replacing you with we. When you say you, especially in feedback, disagreements, or directions, it can sound like blame or separation. It puts a spotlight on the other person, often making them feel isolated or defensive. But when you say we, you create a sense of unity. The brain interprets we as a shared experience, a team, a collaboration. Instead of pushing someone away, you're inviting them in. For example, instead of saying, you need to do better, saying we can improve this together suddenly changes the emotional tone. It becomes supportive, not accusatory. This small linguistic shift makes people feel like they're not alone in a problem or situation, and that creates psychological safety. It also boosts motivation, because no one wants to feel like the outsider being talked at. Everyone wants to feel like part of the solution. Leaders, therapists, negotiators, and even parents use this technique all the time because it dissolves tension and builds trust instantly. The beauty of we is that it includes. It makes the listener feel seen, valued, and supported. So the next time you're tempted to say, you have to, try switching it to let's figure out how we can, and notice the difference in the energy of the room. One word can be the bridge between resistance and connection. And more often than not, that word is we. 43. Let them talk first, then you win. In any interaction, whether it's a negotiation, a job interview, a date, or even an argument, there's an invisible power in who speaks first. Most people rush to fill silence, to make their case, to prove themselves. But when you let the other person talk first, you gain an incredible psychological advantage. People reveal their priorities, their emotions, and often their weaknesses when they begin. They show you what matters most to them, what they are afraid of, or what they want out of the exchange. If you speak first, you're often guessing. But if you stay quiet and let them go first, you're gathering real data straight from the source. It also builds trust. When you listen instead of leading with your voice, the other person feels valued. They lower their guard. They might even feel like the conversation is more collaborative. And most importantly, their mind becomes more open to what you say next. You're not forcing your perspective on them, you're meeting them where they already are. It's not about manipulation, it's about strategy and presence. Even in conflict, if you let someone vent before you respond, they'll be far more receptive to your point. And often, by simply talking, they work out their own answers. The person who listens first often ends up with more influence, not less. So resist the urge to jump in. Let them speak. Give them the floor. Because once they've said their piece, your words won't just land, they'll resonate. 44. Use future pacing. Imagine if. The human brain is wired for stories and possibilities, and one of the most persuasive ways to influence someone is by planting them in the future. That's what future pacing does. When you say, imagine if, or what would it look like if, you're not just giving information, you're guiding the listener's mind into a scenario that feels real, exciting, and emotional. This technique bypasses logical resistance and speaks directly to the imagination. The beauty of future pacing is that it lets someone mentally try on an idea before committing to it. In that imagined world, people often begin to emotionally connect to the outcome before they even realize it. It's used by great speakers, marketers, coaches, and leaders all the time. A politician might say, imagine a world where your kids are safer, while a salesperson might say, picture yourself using this every morning with no stress. Even in personal conversations, future pacing can soften resistance. If someone is unsure about a plan or decision, asking, what do you think life could be like if we tried this, turns the conversation from risk to possibility. The mind loves to fantasize about the better version of reality. And once someone sees it, they start to want it. That desire becomes action. So when you want to motivate, persuade, or inspire, don't argue with the present. Invite them into the future. Because once someone starts imagining, they are halfway to believing. And once they believe, they move. 45. Compliment behind their back reaches their ears. One of the most unexpected ways to build deep trust and admiration is to say something kind about someone when they are not around. It seems counterintuitive. How can a compliment work if they don't hear it directly? But here's the twist, they almost always do. People talk, and word travels. When someone hears from a third party that you spoke well of them in their absence, it creates an incredibly powerful effect. It tells them that your praise wasn't strategic or performative, it was sincere. You weren't saying it to get credit. You were saying it because you meant it. And that, in the human mind, is gold. It activates something psychologists call reputation-building trust. When someone realizes that you're the kind of person who uplifts others even when there's nothing to gain, they begin to see you as not only trustworthy, but rare. This works in professional settings, friendships, and even with people you're trying to win over. If your coworker hears that you praised their ideas to your boss, they're going to see you not as a competitor, but as an ally. And in personal relationships, hearing that someone admires you without needing you to know it creates warmth that's hard to manufacture directly. Of course, the trick is that it has to be authentic. Fake praise or manipulation will backfire. But if you mean it, and say it when there's no spotlight, the echo will return. Because nothing is louder than a quiet compliment, whispered to the world. 46. Plant ideas as questions. Telling someone what to do or believe often makes them resist, even if they agree deep down. It's human nature. We all want to protect our autonomy, to feel like our choices are our own. But there's a way around that resistance. You don't tell people what to think. You ask questions that plant the idea inside them. This technique isn't about manipulation, it's about gently guiding someone to their own realization. When you say, "What would happen if we tried this instead?" Or "Why do you think people respond better when it's framed that way?" you're inviting someone to explore the idea rather than defend against it. Their mind gets to play with the concept, and the ego stays intact. It feels like their idea, not yours, and that makes it powerful. Great teachers, therapists, leaders, and even screenwriters use this method all the time. They ask questions that are so strategically framed, the answer becomes obvious, but never forced. It's called the Socratic method, and it has lasted thousands of years for a reason. It respects the listener's intelligence. When someone discovers an idea on their own, even if you planted the seed, they become more committed to it. So the next time you want to persuade, don't push. Ask. Ask in a way that leads to discovery. Because when a thought becomes their own, it grows roots. And rooted ideas don't get pulled out easily, they get lived. 47. Smile with your eyes, not just mouth. Everyone knows the power of a smile, but what really makes it land isn't just the curve of your lips. It's what happens in your eyes. A genuine smile, also called a Dutchian smile, activates the muscles around your eyes, causing the familiar crinkle or warmth that we associate with true happiness. When your eyes don't participate, the smile can feel forced or insincere, even if your mouth is doing all the right things. That's why customer service smiles often feel hollow. The brain is trained to spot emotional authenticity, and the eyes are the ultimate giveaway. A smile without the eyes says, "I'm faking this." But when your eyes light up, even subtly, it signals joy, connection, openness. That's what people trust. You can't fake it easily either. You have to actually feel something, even for a second. That's why thinking of a pleasant memory, a shared moment, or simply feeling grateful can help your face light up in a way that's magnetic. In conversations, smiling with your eyes makes people feel seen and welcomed. In photos, it makes you seem genuinely happy. And in leadership or influence, it makes you human. It's not about grinning constantly, it's about letting your eyes do the smiling even when your mouth isn't. Because a warm gaze can disarm, soothe, and connect in a way words never could. So next time you smile, don't force it. Let it rise from within and shine through your eyes. That's when it becomes real. 48. Let silence sit just 1 second too long. Silence is uncomfortable. In conversations, people rush to fill the space, to avoid the awkwardness. But if you can learn to let silence linger, just 1 second longer than what feels normal, you create an unusual and powerful effect. That pause becomes a tool of control. It signals confidence, not hesitation. It invites others to reflect, not react. And it opens space for truth, because people often say the most revealing things after the silence stretches. When you ask a tough question and remain silent, the other person feels pressure, not from you, but from within, to respond, to explain, to clarify. That's when the real conversation begins. In negotiations, a quiet moment can make the other side sweeten the offer. In conflict, silence can diffuse escalation. In persuasion, it creates anticipation. Most importantly, in relationships, silence can offer a place for depth, where the connection becomes felt, not spoken. It's about presence. When you're willing to hold silence, it shows you're not desperate to fill space or prove something. You're comfortable with yourself, and that's incredibly attractive. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about creating room. Room for others to speak. Room for your words to land. room for something deeper to rise. So next time you feel the silence creep in, don't panic. Let it sit. Let it breathe. Because sometimes the most profound part of the conversation is the part no one says out loud. 46. Plant ideas as questions. Telling someone what to do or believe often makes them resist, even if they agree deep down. It's human nature. We all want to protect our autonomy, to feel like our choices are our own. But there's a way around that resistance. You don't tell people what to think. You ask questions that plant the idea inside them. This technique isn't about manipulation, it's about gently guiding someone to their own realization. When you say, "What would happen if we tried this instead?" Or "Why do you think people respond better when it's framed that way?" you're inviting someone to explore the idea rather than defend against it. Their mind gets to play with the concept, and the ego stays intact. It feels like their idea, not yours, and that makes it powerful. Great teachers, therapists, leaders, and even screenwriters use this method all the time. They ask questions that are so strategically framed, the answer becomes obvious, but never forced. It's called the Socratic method, and it has lasted thousands of years for a reason. It respects the listener's intelligence. When someone discovers an idea on their own, even if you planted the seed, they become more committed to it. So the next time you want to persuade, don't push. Ask. Ask in a way that leads to discovery. Because when a thought becomes their own, it grows roots. And rooted ideas don't get pulled out easily, they get lived. 47. Smile with your eyes, not just mouth. Everyone knows the power of a smile, but what really makes it land isn't just the curve of your lips. It's what happens in your eyes. A genuine smile, also called a Dutchan smile, activates the muscles around your eyes, causing the familiar crinkle or warmth that we associate with true happiness. When your eyes don't participate, the smile can feel forced or insincere, even if your mouth is doing all the right things. That's why customer service smiles often feel hollow. The brain is trained to spot emotional authenticity, and the eyes are the ultimate giveaway. A smile without the eyes says, "I'm faking this." But when your eyes light up, even subtly, it signals joy, connection, openness. That's what people trust. You can't fake it easily either. You have to actually feel something, even for a second. That's why thinking of a pleasant memory, a shared moment, or simply feeling grateful can help your face light up in a way that's magnetic. In conversations, smiling with your eyes makes people feel seen and welcomed. In photos, it makes you seem genuinely happy. And in leadership or influence, it makes you human. It's not about grinning constantly, it's about letting your eyes do the smiling even when your mouth isn't. Because a warm gaze can disarm, soothe, and connect in a way words never could. So next time you smile, don't force it. Let it rise from within and shine through your eyes. That's when it becomes real. 48. Let silence sit just 1 second too long. Silence is uncomfortable. In conversations, people rush to fill the space, to avoid the awkwardness. But if you can learn to let silence linger, just 1 second longer than what feels normal, you create an unusual and powerful effect. That pause becomes a tool of control. It signals confidence, not hesitation. It invites others to reflect, not react. And it opens space for truth, because people often say the most revealing things after the silence stretches. When you ask a tough question and remain silent, the other person feels pressure, not from you, but from within, to respond, to explain, to clarify. That's when the real conversation begins. In negotiations, a quiet moment can make the other side sweeten the offer. In conflict, silence can diffuse escalation. In persuasion, it creates anticipation. Most importantly, in relationships, silence can offer a place for depth, where the connection becomes felt, not spoken. It's about presence. When you're willing to hold silence, It shows you're not desperate to fill space or prove something. You're comfortable with yourself, and that's incredibly attractive. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about creating room. Room for others to speak. Room for your words to land. Room for something deeper to rise. So next time you feel the silence creep in, don't panic. Let it sit. Let it breathe. Because sometimes the most profound part of the conversation is the part no one says out loud. 49. Pretend you're the host. There's a fascinating shift that happens in your energy when you stop entering rooms as a guest and start acting like the host, even if you're not. The host isn't the loudest person in the room. They're not necessarily the most dressed up or the center of attention. But they have something powerful, a sense of comfort and ownership over the space. When you adopt this mindset, your body language softens, your confidence rises, and people around you instinctively pick up on it. It's not arrogance, it's calm leadership. You greet others first. You make them feel welcome. You become the emotional anchor in the room. And ironically, by making others feel comfortable, you begin to feel more comfortable yourself. It becomes a self-reinforcing loop of ease and influence. Socially, it changes everything. At events, people are drawn to the one who feels grounded. In meetings, it helps you lead without even having a title. On dates, it makes you feel secure without being overbearing. All because you decided, in your mind, this is my space. The trick isn't to dominate, it's to serve. The best hosts don't talk over others. They introduce people, ask thoughtful questions, and make others feel seen. That's the energy you want to carry. When you enter a room like a host, you stop waiting to be accepted and start offering value. You stop shrinking and start expanding. And soon, people stop seeing you as a guest and start treating you like a leader. 50. Fake a deadline to get faster results. When things are open-ended, motivation drops. People take their time, procrastinate, or let urgency fade. But the moment you introduce a deadline, especially one that feels near, things suddenly move. Now, if the deadline is real, great. But here's the psychology: even fake deadlines often work. Not because you're lying, but because the brain responds to urgency, not possibility. It's the Parkinson's law in action: work expands to fill the time available. So if you give yourself a full month, the work will take a month. But if you tell yourself it's due in 4 days, you'll finish in 4. Our brains crave focus when time feels limited. Even better, this works when asking others too. If you want someone to reply, take action, or decide, frame it with soft urgency. Saying something like, "If possible, could we lock this in by Thursday?" is more effective than just saying, "Let me know whenever." People naturally prioritize tasks that feel time-sensitive. You're not manipulating. You're guiding attention. Deadlines bring clarity. They force choices. They accelerate outcomes. So whether you're managing your own time or nudging someone else's, use this tool strategically. Create a window, even if it's artificial, and aim for it like it's real. Because sometimes the only thing standing between a stuck project and a finished one is the illusion of urgency. And when time shrinks, results grow. 51. Ask, what would you do? When you ask someone, what should I do? You put them in a position of pressure or judgment. But when you shift the question to, what would you do? Something much more human happens. You invite empathy. You activate imagination. And you lower their defenses. This shift in language changes the frame from evaluation to experience. Now, they're not trying to give you the correct answer, they're sharing what they personally would feel or choose in your place. And that's where honesty flows. It's a brilliant trick in conversation, negotiation, and even conflict resolution. Because it forces someone to consider the situation from your perspective. It builds bridges. It softens disagreement. And it often leads to surprising insights. People feel heard when asked what they would do. It shows you value their wisdom, not just their approval. It also taps into storytelling. Most people, when answering that question, don't just give you a sentence. They tell you about a time, a fear, a lesson. Suddenly, you're not getting advice. You're getting them. This works across relationships. Whether it's your friend, mentor, boss, or partner, what would you do? Unlocks emotional truth and brings you closer. It's not just a smarter way to ask for help, it's a deeper way to understand someone. Because in their answer, you hear not only what they think, but who they are. And that's the real gift. 52. Never break eye contact while listening. Holding eye contact while you're talking is one thing. But holding it while listening, truly listening, is where the magic happens. Most people think eye contact is a power move when you're speaking. But the real power comes when you give your full gaze while the other person is speaking. It tells them something profound: you have my complete attention. This kind of eye contact isn't staring, it's present. It's soft. It doesn't dominate, it invites. When you hold someone's gaze while they are talking, their words deepen. Their tone softens. They feel safe to go further. That's why therapists, great interviewers, and charismatic leaders all use this technique. It builds trust faster than any clever question or nod of the head. It also helps you remember more. Eye contact activates focus. And when your mind isn't darting around, your brain absorbs more. You connect more. And you understand not just the words, but the feelings beneath them. This doesn't mean staring relentlessly. You can blink, shift slightly, even look away for a moment, but come back. Anchor your presence in your eyes. Make your silence feel like presence, not distance. Because most people listen to respond. But when you listen to understand, with your eyes locked in, it changes the entire mood. You stop being a spectator and become a mirror. One that says, I see you. I hear you. Keep going. And in that space, people say what they never meant to say, but always needed to. 53. Smile first, feel later. Most people think you smile because you feel good, but psychology reveals a fascinating reversal. Sometimes, you feel good because you smile. This is known as the facial feedback hypothesis, and it suggests that the act of smiling, using those exact muscles, even when you're not genuinely happy, can begin to shift your emotional state. When you force a smile, your brain starts releasing tiny amounts of dopamine and serotonin, the chemicals responsible for joy and calm. In other words, the body can trick the mind. This becomes a powerful tool when you're feeling anxious, awkward, or low energy in social situations. By smiling first, even before you feel like it, you're flipping the emotional switch in the background. People also respond differently to you. A smile is an invitation. It disarms tension, opens doors, and makes you more approachable. And the positive feedback loop begins. You smile, they smile back, you feel more at ease, and now your smile becomes real. It's not about faking your way through life, it's about using your body as an instrument to guide your emotions, instead of waiting for emotions to guide your body. And in moments when you feel stuck, depleted, or nervous, this tool is so small and simple that it's often forgotten. But try it. Just lift the corners of your mouth slightly. Hold it. Let your eyes soften. You'll notice your body change. And your mind will follow. Because sometimes, the smile isn't the result of joy. Sometimes, it's the cause. Underscore 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 underscore. 54. Let them finish the sentence. Completion bias. There's something deeply satisfying about finishing our own thoughts. The human mind doesn't like interruptions, especially when it's in the process of forming a sentence. We crave closure, and when someone lets us complete our idea without jumping in, it gives us a sense of ownership and validation. This is tied to something called completion bias. Our brains are wired to finish what we start. When someone interrupts us, it disrupts that flow, and we feel unheard, even if the interruption was friendly or helpful. But when someone lets us finish, no matter how slow we speak or how long we pause, it sends a different signal: your thoughts matter. I respect your process. This act of patience is powerful. It builds emotional safety in the room. It helps the other person relax, open up, and express themselves more fully. And ironically, when people feel they can speak freely, they become better listeners in return. It also prevents miscommunication. Jumping in too early often means you miss where they were actually going. But if you wait even a second longer than feels natural, you get the whole message. It's like letting someone land the plane instead of grabbing the controls mid-air. You build better connections, reduce tension, and often hear things they weren't planning to say because they finally had the space. In conversation, restraint is often more powerful than response. Let the thought land. Let the sentence breathe. Because when someone gets to finish their words, they feel finished inside, too. 55:5:1, the ratio rule. In every healthy relationship, whether personal or professional, there's an invisible balance sheet of emotional exchanges. Psychologist John Gottman discovered something extraordinary. The relationships that thrive over time have one thing in common. For every one negative interaction, they have at least 5 positive ones. This is the 5-to-1 ratio. It means that the emotional weight of a criticism, frustration, or disagreement is so heavy, it needs 5 doses of warmth, appreciation, humor, or affection to balance it out. Think of it like emotional math. If you scold your partner in the morning, you might need 5 small acts of love, like a compliment, a hug, a thank you, a shared joke, or a moment of presence, to restore the equilibrium. In workplaces, the same applies. A single harsh email can erode trust, but 5 sincere affirmations can rebuild it. This doesn't mean you walk on eggshells or become fake. It means you become intentional with your emotional deposits. You recognize that relationships aren't just about solving problems, they're about building buffers of goodwill. The 5-to-1 ratio also helps prevent resentment. When people feel seen more than criticized, supported more than judged, the entire dynamic shifts. So next time you catch yourself offering feedback or reacting in frustration, ask, have I built up enough positivity to make this land well? If not, add more warmth first. Because strong relationships aren't built on perfection. They are built on emotional wealth, and this is how you save it. 56. Show palm equals gain trust instantly. There's a reason open palms feel safe. It goes back thousands of years, long before spoken language. When you show your hands, especially your palms, you're signaling that you're not hiding anything. You're not a threat. You're approachable. And that signal is still embedded deep in our brains today. In modern communication, showing your palm is one of the fastest ways to earn trust without saying a word. Whether it's a subtle hand gesture while talking, a visible hand during a greeting, or just placing your hands on the table, it creates a subconscious message of openness and honesty. Think of how you feel when someone talks to you with their hands in their pockets, or folded tight against their body. It feels closed, even if they are being polite. Now imagine someone who gestures with open palms, who keeps their hands visible and relaxed. The difference is immediate. This is why skilled public speakers, therapists, and even detectives use this technique deliberately. It lowers defenses and invites connection. You don't need to exaggerate it, just keep your hands out and your palms occasionally exposed. It's a non-verbal handshake. A psychological nod that says, I'm not here to harm. I'm here to connect. In high-stakes conversations, this subtle move can make your message land smoother and your presence feel safer. Because when your palms are open, your heart seems open too. And people don't just hear you, they trust you. 57. Act like you already belong. Confidence isn't always something you feel, it's something you decide. And one of the fastest ways to shift your presence in any room is to act as if you already belong there. Not in an arrogant or showy way, but in a quiet, grounded way that says, I have nothing to prove. Most people enter new spaces on the defensive. They scan the room for approval. They worry they're being judged. But when you walk in like you're part of the tribe already, like you've earned your seat at the table, others often accept you on that basis alone. Humans are highly responsive to social cues, and the confidence you project tends to get reflected back at you. This doesn't mean faking expertise or pretending you know everything. It means embodying the assumption that you're allowed to be here, that your presence is valid, that your voice deserves to be heard. This mental shift changes everything. Your posture straightens, your tone steadies, your eyes stay level. People notice. And more importantly, you notice. The feedback loop starts. When you behave like you belong, others treat you that way. And as they treat you that way, your inner belief starts to catch up. You're no longer waiting for permission. You're moving like someone who's already been invited. This is how leaders rise, how strangers become insiders, and how fear transforms into strength. Because sometimes, the only difference between exclusion and inclusion is the way you walk through the door. 58. Count to 3 before responding to emotion. When emotions run high, logic often runs low. In moments of anger, embarrassment, or stress, we feel the pressure to respond immediately, to defend, react, justify, or attack. But that instant reaction often fuels the fire instead of putting it out. That's why one of the simplest and most powerful tools in emotional intelligence is the 3-second pause. Just count to 3 before you speak. It sounds easy, even trivial. But in practice, it's profound. Those 3 seconds give your brain time to shift from instinct to intention. Instead of reacting from your gut, you respond from your core. You can take a breath. You can observe your tone. You can remember the bigger picture. This delay doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. It shows you're in control of yourself, not controlled by the moment. And the other person feels it. They feel the presence, the calm, the respect. That pause can de-escalate conflict, diffuse tension, and redirect conversations that were spiraling out of control. It also builds trust. People are more likely to listen to you when they sense you're not reacting impulsively, but responding with thought. Over time, this habit becomes second nature. You'll find yourself less rattled, more grounded, and far more influential. Because in emotionally charged moments, power doesn't belong to the loudest voice. It belongs to the calmest. And often, the calmest person in the room is the one who simply waited 3 seconds before speaking. 59. Touch the table to anchor attention. In a noisy conversation or high-energy discussion, it's easy to lose people's attention. But a subtle and surprisingly powerful way to bring it back is to physically anchor your presence by touching the table in front of you. This gesture grounds you in space and creates a non-verbal command of the environment. It signals that you are taking up intentional space, and people intuitively refocus on you. The sound or motion of your hand meeting the table, gently, not aggressively, creates a tiny moment of stillness. It snaps wandering eyes back to your face. But more than that, it affects you, too. It grounds you in the present. It tells your nervous system, I'm here. I'm steady. Anchoring can help you regain control of a meeting, draw someone back from distraction, or emphasize a key point without raising your voice. It's like planting a flag in the conversation. You don't have to slam or make a dramatic move, just a simple, calm placement of your hand creates the effect. It also communicates confidence without words. People who are anxious often fidget, fold inward, or cling to their own hands. But someone who calmly touches the surface in front of them appears centered, sure of their place, and in quiet control. It's a cue both to yourself and others: pay attention now. This matters. Because in communication, presence isn't just heard. It's felt, and sometimes all it takes is one steady hand on the table. 60. Speak slower to sound smarter. In a fast-talking world, slowing down your speech can feel counterintuitive. You might worry you'll lose people's interest or seem unsure of yourself. But the opposite is usually true. When you speak slowly, you project confidence, clarity, and control. It tells your audience, "I'm not in a rush. What I'm saying matters." Fast talk can signal anxiety, insecurity, or an attempt to squeeze it all in. But slow speech, when paired with thoughtful pauses and intentional phrasing, allows your words to land. It gives listeners time to absorb your message, not just hear it. Psychologically, slow talkers are often perceived as more intelligent, more trustworthy, and more persuasive. That's why world leaders, great actors, and TED speakers rarely rush. They understand that presence is communicated through pace. Slowing down also helps you think more clearly. It gives your brain a moment to catch up with your mouth, so your points become sharper and more coherent. You're less likely to ramble or backtrack. And it creates rhythm. Your words start to carry weight, like well-placed drum beats in a song. This doesn't mean dragging out every sentence unnaturally. It means choosing your tempo like a musician. Vary it. Use silence. Let your message breathe. When you slow your speech, people don't tune out. They lean in. Because in a world of noise, the voice that speaks slowly is the voice that sounds like it has something important to say. 60. Speak slower to sound smarter. In a fast-talking world, slowing down your speech can feel counterintuitive. You might worry you'll lose people's interest or seem unsure of yourself. But the opposite is usually true. When you speak slowly, you project confidence, clarity, and control. It tells your audience, "I'm not in a rush. What I'm saying matters." Fast talk can signal anxiety, insecurity, or an attempt to squeeze it all in. But slow speech, when paired with thoughtful pauses and intentional phrasing, allows your words to land. It gives listeners time to absorb your message, not just hear it. Psychologically, slow talkers are often perceived as more intelligent, more trustworthy, and more persuasive. That's why world leaders, great actors, and TED speakers rarely rush. They understand that presence is communicated through pace. Slowing down also helps you think more clearly. It gives your brain a moment to catch up with your mouth, so your points become sharper and more coherent. You're less likely to ramble or backtrack. And it creates rhythm. Your words start to carry weight, like well-placed drum beats in a song. This doesn't mean dragging out every sentence unnaturally. It means choosing your tempo like a musician. Vary it. Use silence. Let your message breathe. When you slow your speech, people don't tune out. They lean in. Because in a world of noise, the voice that speaks slowly is the voice that sounds like it has something important to say. 61. Say, "That reminds me of a story." When you say the words, "that reminds me of a story," something powerful happens in the listener's brain. Their curiosity wakes up. Their guard drops. Their attention locks in. Stories are the native language of the human mind. Long before data, charts, or arguments existed, people shared wisdom, warnings, and identity through storytelling. So when you cue a story, even a small one, you create emotional resonance. It doesn't have to be epic. It just has to be real. A memory, a moment, a feeling, and suddenly, the conversation deepens. That's why this phrase is so effective. It signals a shift from facts to feeling, from general to personal. from logic to meaning. And people respond instinctively. It's a pattern interrupt. If the conversation was dry or transactional, now it becomes intimate. It's also a brilliant persuasion tool. Stories don't argue. They illustrate. If someone's resisting an idea, and you say, "That reminds me of something that happened last year," their defenses soften. You're no longer debating, you're sharing. And when someone sees the world through your experience, they begin to understand you on a different level. Even if they forget the details, they'll remember the feeling. And people make decisions based on feeling, not facts. So use this phrase when a point needs to land deeper. When logic has hit a wall. When the moment feels flat. Say it gently. Say it with warmth. That reminds me of a story, because that's how you go from being heard to being remembered. 62. Use humor first, logic later. When trying to win someone over, whether in a conversation, a pitch, or a conflict, it's tempting to lead with facts, logic, and airtight reasoning. But what most people forget is that humor opens the door before logic can walk through it. When you make someone laugh or even smile, you disarm them. You build rapport. You're showing that you're not a threat, that you don't take yourself too seriously, and that connection matters more than control. Laughter releases endorphins and oxytocin, creating an instant sense of trust and ease. The person listening to you isn't just evaluating your words anymore, they're enjoying your presence. That emotional shift makes them far more receptive to whatever comes next. Now, when you finally make your point, when the facts arrive, they land on warm soil instead of cold concrete. Even in serious discussions, a moment of lightness can soften the tone enough to keep things constructive. Humor doesn't mean turning everything into a joke. It means letting humanity and lightness lead the way. A clever observation, a playful comment, a little self-deprecation, it all works. People are far more likely to agree with someone they like. And we like people who make us feel good. So use humor as your front door and logic as your foundation. Because when hearts are open, minds will follow. And laughter? It's the sound of resistance melting. 60. Speak slower to sound smarter. In a fast-talking world, slowing down your speech can feel counterintuitive. You might worry you'll lose people's interest or seem unsure of yourself. But the opposite is usually true. When you speak slowly, you project confidence, clarity, and control. It tells your audience, "I'm not in a rush. What I'm saying matters." Fast talk can signal anxiety, insecurity, or an attempt to squeeze it all in. But slow speech, when paired with thoughtful pauses and intentional phrasing, allows your words to land. It gives listeners time to absorb your message, not just hear it. Psychologically, slow talkers are often perceived as more intelligent, more trustworthy, and more persuasive. That's why world leaders, great actors, and TED speakers rarely rush. They understand that presence is communicated through pace. Slowing down also helps you think more clearly. It gives your brain a moment to catch up with your mouth, so your points become sharper and more coherent. You're less likely to ramble or backtrack. And it creates rhythm. Your words start to carry weight, like well-placed drum beats in a song. This doesn't mean dragging out every sentence unnaturally. It means choosing your tempo like a musician. Vary it. Use silence. Let your message breathe. When you slow your speech, people don't tune out. They lean in. Because in a world of noise, the voice that speaks slowly is the voice that sounds like it has something important to say. 61. Say, "That reminds me of a story." When you say the words, "That reminds me of a story," something powerful happens in the listener's brain. Their curiosity wakes up. Their guard drops. Their attention locks in. Stories are the native language of the human mind. Long before data, charts, or arguments existed, people shared wisdom, warnings, and identity through storytelling. So when you cue a story, even a small one, you create emotional resonance. It doesn't have to be epic. It just has to be real. A memory, a moment, a feeling, and suddenly, the conversation deepens. That's why this phrase is so effective. It signals a shift from facts to feeling, from general to personal, from logic to meaning. And people respond instinctively. It's a pattern interrupt. If the conversation was dry or transactional, now it becomes intimate. It's also a brilliant persuasion tool. Stories don't argue. They illustrate. If someone's resisting an idea, and you say, "That reminds me of something that happened last year," their defenses soften. You're no longer debating, you're sharing. And when someone sees the world through your experience, they begin to understand you on a different level. Even if they forget the details, they'll remember the feeling. And people make decisions based on feeling, not facts. So use this phrase when a point needs to land deeper. When logic has hit a wall. When the moment feels flat. Say it gently. Say it with warmth. That reminds me of a story, because that's how you go from being heard to being remembered. 62. Use humor first, logic later. When trying to win someone over, whether in a conversation, a pitch, or a conflict, it's tempting to lead with facts, logic, and airtight reasoning. But what most people forget is that humor opens the door before logic can walk through it. When you make someone laugh or even smile, you disarm them. You build rapport. You're showing that you're not a threat, that you don't take yourself too seriously, and that connection matters more than control. Laughter releases endorphins and oxytocin, creating an instant sense of trust and ease. The person listening to you isn't just evaluating your words anymore, they're enjoying your presence. That emotional shift makes them far more receptive to whatever comes next. Now, when you finally make your point, when the facts arrive, they land on warm soil instead of cold concrete. Even in serious discussions, a moment of lightness can soften the tone enough to keep things constructive. Humor doesn't mean turning everything into a joke. It means letting humanity and lightness lead the way. A clever observation, a playful comment, a little self-deprecation, it all works. People are far more likely to agree with someone they like. And we like people who make us feel good. So use humor as your front door and logic as your foundation. Because when hearts are open, minds will follow. And laughter? It's the sound of resistance melting. 63. Ask, how did that make you feel? This question may seem simple, but it's one of the most emotionally powerful phrases in human language. When you ask someone, how did that make you feel? You're not just requesting information, you're giving them permission to be seen. Most people walk around carrying unspoken experiences. They might tell you what happened or what they did, but rarely are they invited to express how it felt. This question reaches past the surface and taps into memory, emotion, vulnerability. It makes someone pause, reflect, remember, and that pause is where connection lives. Whether in friendships, romantic relationships, therapy, or leadership, this question signals emotional safety. It says, I'm not just here for the facts. I care about your inner world. The effect is immediate. Walls come down. Trust rises. People soften. They open up not just with words, but with truth. And often, they end up revealing more than they planned to, because someone actually asked. This question also builds empathy. When you hear how something made someone feel, you begin to feel with them. You're no longer outside their story, you're inside it. And that changes everything. So next time someone shares something important, don't rush to fix, advise, or even respond. Just ask, how did that make you feel? Then wait. Listen. Hold space. Because in a world full of noise, the person who invites feeling is the person we remember. 64. Break tension with a whisper. When a room is filled with tension, When voices are raised, emotions run high, or energy is thick, most people instinctively get louder to be heard. But there's a secret move that flips the dynamic completely: speak softer. Whisper, even. It's counterintuitive, but incredibly effective. Lowering your voice in a moment of intensity forces people to lean in. It changes the rhythm, the energy, the vibe. It's a disruption. And the human brain, which is wired to notice contrast, suddenly refocuses. Whispers carry weight. They feel private, intimate, intentional. In tense moments, a whisper cuts through noise more effectively than a shout. It signals calm, not panic. Confidence, not desperation. And that emotional shift ripples outward. Others begin to mirror it. The volume of the room drops. The tempo slows. People actually start listening. Whispering also shows control. It tells everyone, I'm not afraid. I don't need to fight for attention. I already have it. It's a tool used by master negotiators, diplomats, even parents. The next time you're in a heated discussion or feel things escalating, try it. Don't raise your voice, lower it. Let the power of silence, stillness, and softness shift the entire tone. Because sometimes, the loudest message is the one said just under your breath. 65. Ask to borrow a pen, instant bond trick. It sounds ridiculously simple. Asking to borrow a pen? Really? But underneath that tiny request is a surprisingly powerful social technique rooted in psychology. When you ask someone for a small favor, like borrowing a pen, you activate what's known as the Ben Franklin effect. The idea is this: people don't like doing favors for people they dislike. So when they do a favor, even a small one, their brain rewires itself to think, I must like this person, or I wouldn't have helped them. Borrowing a pen isn't about ink. It's about building a moment of mutual exchange. You're not asking for attention, praise, or advice, just something harmless. And in that moment, the walls drop. You've created a tiny thread of cooperation, and that thread can grow into rapport. It's also a soft icebreaker. If you're in a meeting, classroom, or social event and you feel awkward, asking for a pen gets you talking without needing a deep or clever opener. It's non-threatening, familiar, easy. The person hands you the pen, maybe says something else, and suddenly you're no longer strangers. And here's the twist: after they give you the pen, you return it with a simple thanks, and they walk away feeling better about themselves. Why? Because helping others, even in micro moments, triggers a sense of warmth. So you win, they win, and a tiny bridge is built. Never underestimate these small social exchanges. Sometimes, the fastest way to connect isn't by impressing someone, it's by borrowing their pen. 66. Thank them for the thought, not the action. Most people say thank you for what someone did. Thanks for helping me move. Thanks for the ride. Thanks for buying lunch. And that's good, but there's a deeper level of gratitude that lands harder: thanking people for what they thought. When you say, thank you for thinking of me, or thanks for taking the time to even consider that, you're reaching beneath the surface. You're acknowledging their intention, not just the outcome. That kind of recognition makes people feel deeply seen. Sometimes, someone's help doesn't go perfectly. Maybe the event fell through, or their idea didn't work out. But if you say, I really appreciate that you even tried, you validate their effort. And that's what most people are hungry for: not praise for being flawless, but appreciation for caring enough to try. It also makes you more thoughtful in return. When you get into the habit of thanking people for their thinking, not just their doing, you start noticing the invisible kindness around you. The quiet gestures. The unseen decisions. Gratitude becomes more than manners, it becomes emotional intelligence. So next time someone supports you, don't just thank them for the outcome. Look for the thought behind it. Say, I know you didn't have to think of me, But you did, and that means a lot. Because in that moment, you're not just saying thank you. You're saying, you mattered to me even before you acted. 67. Ask, can you help me understand? Few phrases are more disarming, respectful, and powerful than this one. Can you help me understand? In a tense moment, a disagreement, or even a confusing conversation, this question opens the door to clarity without confrontation. Instead of accusing someone or assuming bad intent, you're inviting them to share their perspective. It shows humility, curiosity, and emotional control. Most people are quick to judge or argue when they feel misunderstood, but this question flips the script. It says, I'm here to listen, not just react. That softens people. They no longer feel attacked. They feel invited. This phrase works across every kind of interaction, with friends, family, co-workers, strangers. Whether someone says something that bothers you or makes a decision you don't get, you pause and ask, can you help me understand what led you to that choice? Now, the conversation becomes a bridge, not a battleground. You're not agreeing, but you're opening. And that subtle shift often leads to real connection, even in disagreement. It also gives you time to regulate your own emotions. By shifting into curiosity, you calm your nervous system. You become more present, more thoughtful, and you often discover there's more to the story than you assumed. This phrase doesn't just diffuse conflict, it builds emotional credibility. Because the person who seeks to understand is always the one who ends up being understood in return. 68. Say, tell me more instead of arguing. When someone says something you disagree with, the impulse is to push back, to correct, to argue. But often, that just hardens their stance and turns the conversation into a contest of who's right. There's a better way, so subtle, it feels like a trick. Instead of countering, say, tell me more about that. Those 4 words do something magical. They disarm ego. They invite vulnerability. And they signal that you're curious, not combative. Even if you totally disagree, this phrase opens space for the other person to feel seen, and in that space, their argument often softens or evolves. Most people haven't fully thought through their ideas until they speak them out loud. By asking them to expand, you help them do the thinking you wanted to do for them. But now, they're doing it voluntarily. And here's the kicker, when people feel heard, they become more open to hearing you in return. That doesn't mean you're surrendering your stance. It means you're being strategic. You're creating a conversational rhythm that flows instead of clashes. Tell me more also signals emotional maturity. You're not easily triggered. You're willing to explore. And that creates safety. Whether it's a heated topic, a personal issue, or a simple misunderstanding, this phrase changes the energy. So next time your mind says, correct them, let your mouth say, tell me more. Because what they reveal next might change everything. 69. Share a secret first. There's something timeless and deeply human about secrets. Not the kind meant to harm, but the kind that reveal vulnerability, truth, or something quietly personal. And when you share one first, especially in a new relationship or interaction, you signal something powerful, I trust you. That signal activates something primal. The other person feels safe, seen, and subtly invited to meet you at the same level of depth. This is reciprocity in its rawest emotional form. When you open a door into your inner world, even just a crack, others instinctively want to open theirs. You don't have to reveal your darkest history. A small fear, a weird quirk, a past mistake. These tiny disclosures create a magnetic effect. They strip away the performance layer and say, let's be real. In conversations that feel shallow or distant, sharing a secret can be the bridge that pulls someone closer. It's also a mark of confidence. When you're not afraid to be a little exposed, it shows strength, not weakness. And that strength, paradoxically, creates softness in the space. The person listening doesn't feel like they are being managed or manipulated, they feel invited into something honest. Trust doesn't require years. Sometimes, it just takes one brave moment. So the next time you want to deepen a connection, try it. Lower the shield, just a little. Say something not everyone gets to hear. Because when you share a secret, you offer more than information. You offer a human bond, and those are the ones people never forget. 70. Comment on the atmosphere, not them. When you're trying to break the ice or ease into a conversation, the focus tends to go straight to the person, what they are wearing, doing, or saying. But often, that puts pressure on them. Compliments can feel forced. Questions can feel intrusive. There's a smoother path in. Comment on the atmosphere. Notice the room, the music, the light, the energy. Something shared, not personal. It's subtle, but powerful. Instead of saying, "You look nervous," you say, "It's kind of tense in here." Instead of, "You're quiet," you say, "Feels like everyone's in their own head today." These observations mirror the environment, not the person, which makes people feel less spotlighted and more safe. It shows you're perceptive, but not pushy. Empathetic, but not invasive. And the beautiful twist is this: when you comment on the atmosphere, people often respond by revealing something about themselves anyway. They'll say, "Yeah, I'm feeling it too," or "Honestly, I needed this break." And now the conversation deepens. This move is especially useful in emotionally charged situations. Rather than confronting someone directly, you can speak to the space around them. It reduces defensiveness, builds rapport, and shows that you're not just listening, you're noticing. So next time the moment feels awkward or distant, don't force connection. Just reflect the room. Reflect the mood. Because sometimes, the gentlest way to reach someone is to speak about everything but them. 71. Say, "That's exactly what I would have said." This phrase might sound like flattery, but when used sincerely and strategically, it creates a strong moment of affirmation. Saying "that's exactly what I would have said" does more than agree, it validates. It makes the other person feel sharp, insightful, and in sync with you. That's not just good manners, it's deep psychology. Humans crave alignment. We want to know we're not alone in how we think or feel. So when you echo someone's thought with this phrase, you're offering more than agreement, you're offering belonging. It's especially useful in group settings or brainstorming sessions. When someone shares an idea and you say, "That's exactly what I was thinking," you elevate their status in the group while building a bridge between the two of you. It shows you're not competing for credit, you're connecting. And if you truly were going to say it, the compliment lands even deeper. It also works well in moments of praise or empathy. If someone defends someone else, and you respond with, "Exactly. That's what I was about to say," it tells them they're not fighting alone. You're beside them. Just don't overuse it. If you say this to every statement, it loses its charm. But when you pick your moments, it becomes a quiet high five. A mirror that says, "You're not just right, you're resonating with me." And in a world full of noise, that shared mental frequency is golden. 72. Let them choose the timing. There's power in giving people control, especially when it comes to when a conversation happens. Whether it's a tough discussion, a vulnerable question, or a request for help, letting someone choose the timing shows emotional respect. It says, "I care not just about what we talk about, but when you're ready to talk." That small adjustment shifts the entire emotional dynamic. Instead of imposing your agenda, you're creating space for theirs. And that space often leads to deeper honesty, less resistance, and stronger trust. Think of the difference between "we need to talk right now" versus "when would be a good time to talk about something important." One feels like a demand. The other feels like an invitation. and invitations get accepted more often than ultimatums. This also works in professional settings. If you want feedback or need a difficult conversation with a teammate, saying, "would now work" or "would later be better," puts them in the driver's seat without taking away your voice. It's emotional aikido, redirecting resistance instead of fighting it. Letting people choose timing doesn't mean giving up your needs. It means respecting theirs, too. And often, when people feel that respect, they respond sooner and more positively than if they'd been pushed. Because it's not just what you say. It's when you let them say it. And when someone gets to choose that moment, they often bring their best self to it. 73. Describe their expression, not their mood. When trying to connect with someone emotionally, we often rush to label their inner state. We say things like, "you look sad," or "you seem angry." But this can backfire. It assumes too much. It can feel invasive or incorrect. A better way? Describe what you see, not what you assume. Say something like, "your eyes look really focused," or "you've been quiet since you walked in." This subtle shift is profound. Instead of diagnosing someone's feelings, you're simply observing their expression or behavior. It's respectful. It invites, not invades. And that invitation often leads them to open up. They might say, "Yeah, I've been stressed," or even surprise you with something deeper. Describing the visible keeps the door open, while labeling the invisible can make someone shut down. It also makes you more emotionally intelligent. You begin to notice facial tension, voice changes, posture, all the cues we often overlook. And when you reflect them back gently, the other person feels seen, not judged. This technique is especially useful in delicate conversations. It lets you acknowledge the moment without pushing. Instead of saying, "you're upset," you say, "you've barely said a word since the meeting." And that opens a safer path for connection. Because in emotionally charged moments, people don't need mind readers. They need witnesses. And witnessing begins with description, not diagnosis. Say what you see, and let them reveal what they feel. 74. Say nothing, just nod. In many conversations, especially emotional ones, people don't need answers. They don't want advice. They want presence. They want to know they're being heard. And one of the simplest, most powerful ways to show that is to say nothing and nod. Just that. A slow, intentional nod. No no interruptions, no fillers. Just quiet, focused attention and a subtle physical cue that says, "I'm with you. Keep going." This small act creates space. And in that space, people go deeper. They say things they hadn't planned to say. They reflect more honestly. They feel less alone. The nod becomes a mirror. They see your silence as proof of safety. This technique is especially helpful when someone is venting, grieving, or confessing. If you interrupt with a solution or story of your own, the emotional thread snaps. But if you simply nod, especially after they finish a sentence, they feel invited to continue. It's nonverbal encouragement. A sign that you're not rushing them, not judging them, not waiting to speak. Just being. And that kind of presence is rare. You don't have to agree. You don't even have to fully understand. You just have to stay with them, one nod at a time. So next time you don't know what to say, or think you should say something, don't. Just listen. Breathe. Nod. Because in the silence between words, trust grows. 75. Never break eye contact while listening. Most people don't listen, they wait to talk. Their eyes dart around, or they half listen while preparing their next line. But when you maintain unbroken eye contact while listening, you change the entire energy of the conversation. You become more than a listener, you become a mirror. A witness. A grounding force. Eye contact is one of the most powerful signals of presence we have. It says, "You matter. I'm not somewhere else. I'm here." fully. And when someone feels that kind of attention, something incredible happens. They start revealing more. Their voice deepens, their thoughts slow down, their vulnerability sharpens. Eye contact while speaking is important, but while listening, it's sacred. It shows that you're not just hearing the words, but holding the space. You're not trying to fix, solve, or perform. You're absorbing, feeling, witnessing. That builds intimacy even in professional settings. It creates emotional gravity. And people walk away from those moments feeling seen in a way they didn't expect. Of course, don't make it creepy. You're not staring, you're being with. Let your eyes soften. Let your body relax. Nod occasionally. And just hold that gaze. You'll be shocked at how much deeper the conversation goes. Because in a world full of distracted glances and split attention, your steady eye contact says, "This moment is safe. I'm here. Speak freely." 76. Use open gestures to invite openness. Your body speaks louder than your words, and it's speaking before you do. One of the clearest signals you can send in a conversation is through open gestures. These include arms uncrossed, hands visible, palms occasionally turned upward, and posture that leans slightly forward. These signals say, "I'm approachable. I'm listening. I'm not hiding anything." And people pick up on them instantly, even if they are not consciously aware. When your body is open, others feel safer being open too. It's contagious. Closed gestures, folded arms, tense hands, hunched shoulders, send the opposite message. They make people withdraw, even if your words are kind. But open gestures soften the energy of a room. They invite stories, trust, and emotion. In negotiations, coaching, friendships, or even small talk, your body either builds a bridge or a wall. Open gestures also make you feel more confident. When you expand your physical space, your nervous system calms down. You breathe deeper. You feel capable. That energy becomes part of your presence. You don't need to overdo it. Just be aware. Rest your hands openly on the table. Avoid clenching. Turn slightly toward the person. Keep your chest open. And most importantly, pair those gestures with warmth in your eyes. Because when your body says, "Welcome," the other person's heart answers back, "I'm here." And from that place, real conversation begins. 77. Turn the chair slightly toward them. Small shifts in body language can create massive shifts in emotional tone, and one of the most subtle yet powerful gestures is this. Turn your chair slightly toward the person you're speaking with. Not directly head-on, just enough to signal engagement, without intensity. That slight angle creates psychological comfort. It removes the pressure of a face-to-face confrontation and replaces it with the softness of a shared space. Think of how people sit when they are watching a sunset or sharing coffee on a bench, slightly turned, relaxed, open. This angle mimics that feeling. It invites conversation instead of interrogation. It says, "I'm with you, not against you." In conflict, it helps de-escalate tension. In new conversations, it eases social anxiety. And in intimate moments, it creates a cozy sense of connection. What makes this so effective is how unconscious it feels. The other person won't think, "Oh, they turned their chair slightly." They'll just feel safer. They'll open up faster, trust more easily, and sense you're tuned into the moment. This works in professional meetings too. Sitting at a slight angle to a coworker or client makes them feel like you're collaborating rather than competing. It's a quiet cue of emotional intelligence, no words needed. So next time you sit down with someone, don't square up like a debater. Shift slightly. Invite the angle. Let your posture say, "We're on the same side." Because sometimes, the smallest turn changes the entire direction of a conversation. 78. Let them say no to feel in control. People don't like to be pressured. The moment they sense you're pushing them toward yes, their defenses rise. But if you flip the dynamic and give them permission to say no, you create something rare, emotional safety. When someone hears, "You can totally say no to this," or "If this doesn't work for you, that's okay," their resistance melts. They feel empowered, in control, free to choose. Ironically, that freedom makes them far more likely to say yes, because now it's on their terms. This is the psychological principle behind consent-based influence. People value autonomy more than agreement. They don't want to feel trapped into a decision, they want to feel like they arrived at it freely. Great negotiators, salespeople, and leaders use this constantly. Instead of saying, "Can I schedule a demo with you?" they say, "Would it be a terrible idea to show you how this works?" That framing gives the listener space. It takes the pressure off. And often, they lean in. You can use this in personal life too. When asking for help, advice, or even a favor, acknowledge their freedom, no pressure at all. But if you're up for it, that softens the ask and strengthens the relationship. Because in the end, people don't want to be told what to do. They want to feel like the decision was theirs. And when you let them say no, you often earn a deeper, more meaningful yes. 79. You probably already know this. This phrase is a clever psychological lubricant. It lets you share valuable information without sounding like a know-it-all. When you say, "You probably already know this," but you do something subtle and brilliant, you flatter the other person's intelligence while still planting the seed you want to share. It's disarming, respectful, non-threatening, and it keeps the conversation open instead of defensive. Nobody likes to feel condescended to. If you say, "Let me explain something to you," people often brace themselves or tune out. But when you say, "You probably already know this," it implies they're already smart, informed, part of the club. Ironically, they listen more closely, because now they want to see if they do know it. This tactic works in teaching, persuading, mentoring, and even casual advice giving. It's especially effective in situations where hierarchy might be present, like speaking to a boss, elder, or expert. You're sharing insight without ego, and that humility builds trust. And here's the twist: even if they didn't know it, they won't feel embarrassed. Your wording protected their pride. You gave them a soft landing. So next time you're about to offer a suggestion or insight, try this opener. Say it warmly, gently. "You probably already know this, but just in case," because in communication, how you share an idea often matters more than the idea itself. 80. Ask them to teach you something. Asking someone to teach you something taps into one of the deepest psychological needs humans have, the need to feel valuable. When you say, "Can you show me how you do that?" or "I've always wanted to understand that better, can you explain it?" you're giving them a gift disguised as a question. You're telling them they are smart, experienced, or skilled in a way you admire. That triggers a powerful shift in the conversation dynamic. Instead of trying to impress them, you're inviting them to shine. And when people feel they're being valued for their knowledge, they open up like flowers. This tactic builds trust instantly. It breaks down status walls. It flips ego into connection. And it often leads to conversations that go deeper than facts, because teaching is intimate. It reveals personality, story, even passion. It also makes you more likable. Humility is magnetic. When you ask to learn instead of trying to prove yourself, people lean in. They feel respected. And they remember you. This move is especially potent in professional networking, new friendships, or when breaking the ice. You're not just making small talk, you're building meaningful rapport. So next time you want to get closer to someone or shift the tone of a conversation, ask them to teach you something they care about. Then listen with full attention. Because in that moment, you're not just learning a skill, you're learning who they are. 81. When nervous, help someone else. Nervousness is often rooted in self-focus. Your mind loops. What if I mess up? What will they think of me? Am I doing this right? That internal spotlight magnifies fear. But here's the paradox. The fastest way to dissolve nervousness is to focus on someone else. When you shift your attention from how do I look to how can I help, your entire mental framework changes. You move from self-conscious to service-minded. Your body calms. Your breathing deepens. Your energy shifts. This technique is so effective because it hijacks your brain's threat system. The moment you think, let me support that person, your fear center quiets down. You're not a performer anymore, you're a partner. And that role feels safer. Whether you're walking into a party, stepping on stage, or preparing for a tough conversation, find one person to help. Compliment someone. Hold a door. Ask someone how they are doing. Offer insight, or even just a smile. You'll feel more grounded, because helping gives you a sense of purpose. It reminds you, I have value beyond my nerves. Helping also makes others relax around you, creating a feedback loop of ease. So next time anxiety tightens your chest, don't fight it directly. Just redirect it outward. Serve. Support. Give. Because confidence isn't about thinking less of yourself, it's about thinking of yourself less. 82. Use future pacing. Imagine if. The human brain is a simulation machine. We're always imagining outcomes, good or bad, even when we don't realize it. Future pacing leverages this by guiding the listener's imagination in a specific, emotionally charged direction. It starts with two words, imagine if. This tiny phrase creates instant mental projection. When you say, imagine if you could wake up without anxiety, or imagine if this idea actually worked, you're not just describing a future, you're letting someone feel it. That imagined reality activates the same neurological pathways as if it were real. The result? Emotional engagement, hope, curiosity, and often, motivation to move forward. This technique is used in everything from sales and therapy to speeches and storytelling. Why? Because facts tell. But possibility sells. And people don't just make decisions based on logic, they move toward the feelings you help them imagine. Future pacing is also a beautiful way to inspire. It opens the door to optimism, creativity, and solution-based thinking. You're not just discussing what is, you're co-creating what could be. And that vision, when emotionally compelling, is irresistible. So next time you want to persuade, motivate, or even comfort someone, don't just talk about the now. Say, imagine if things felt easier. Or imagine if you weren't alone in this. Because the future we picture often becomes the future we pursue. 83. Be the first to apologize in conflict. Conflict triggers the ego. We want to defend, justify, prove our point. But often, what actually heals the rift isn't being right, it's being first to take emotional responsibility. When you say, I want to apologize first, you diffuse the power struggle. You're no longer trying to win. You're trying to repair. And that shift creates a ripple of disarmament. The other person, no matter how angry, suddenly feels something rare, emotional maturity. They don't feel attacked. They feel seen. A sincere first apology doesn't mean you're wrong about everything. It means you value connection over ego. You're saying, I care enough to go first. That kind of courage is contagious. It makes others want to meet you halfway. It also speeds up resolution. While most people get stuck in the waiting game, I'll apologize if they do first, you're breaking the deadlock. And in doing so, you often walk away not just with peace, but with respect. Because people don't forget those who own their side without waiting. It shows strength, not weakness. And in high-trust relationships, this can become a healing habit. So next time tension builds and silence stretches, take a breath. Step forward. Be first. Say, before anything else, I'm sorry for my part in this. It won't make you smaller. It will make you braver. 84. Ask for opinions, not answers. When you ask someone for an answer, it puts them on the spot. It implies there's a right and wrong, a test to pass. But when you ask for an opinion, everything softens. The conversation becomes personal, exploratory, and emotionally open. Phrasing like, "What's your take on this?" or "I'd love your opinion on something," creates a safe space where people don't feel judged, they feel respected. You're not asking them to solve something. You're inviting them into it. This subtle reframe taps into one of the deepest psychological needs, to be valued. When you ask someone's opinion, you're saying, "I trust your perspective. Your voice matters to me." That makes people lean in, not lean away. It also helps in persuasion. People are more open to ideas they feel they've helped shape. So if you're pitching something new or facing resistance, don't present a conclusion, ask for thoughts. What would your instincts say about this? It gives people ownership. And ownership leads to alignment. In relationships, this technique deepens trust. In teams, it builds collaboration. In friendships, it shows care. People don't always want to solve your problems, they want to feel included in your thinking. So don't chase answers. Invite insight. Ask not, "What should I do?" but "What's your opinion?" Because when someone shares their opinion, they're not just revealing their mind, they're giving you a piece of their heart. 85. Use even if to overcome doubt. When someone hesitates, especially in decision-making, it's rarely about the logic. It's about fear. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? That's where the phrase "even if" becomes pure psychological gold. It's a soft, confident bridge across doubt. When you say, "Even if you're nervous, it'll still be worth it," or "even if it takes time, this is still the right direction," you acknowledge fear without letting it win. You're not arguing against the worry. You're walking with it. And that makes all the difference. Even if validates the person's concern while gently guiding them past it. It offers assurance without denial. Hope without hype. And that makes your message land emotionally, not just intellectually. This technique is especially powerful in coaching, encouragement, or persuasion. You're saying, "I know you're afraid, and that's okay, but what you want is still possible." It reframes the fear from a blocker into a backdrop. And once fear is placed behind instead of in front, people move. It works for self-talk, too. Next time your own mind whispers doubts, try this: "Even if I mess up, I'll learn something." Or "Even if I'm not perfect, I can still begin." Those words are quiet weapons against paralysis. Because "even if" doesn't eliminate fear, but it tells fear, "You're coming with me, not stopping me." And that changes everything. 86. Act like you forgot they're famous. Status can be a war. When someone's rich, powerful, brilliant, or admired, it creates emotional distance. People treat them differently, either with or with self-protection. But if you want to build real rapport with high-status individuals, here's the trick: act like you forgot they are famous. That doesn't mean disrespect or ignorance. It means treating them like a normal human, with humor, curiosity, and ease. Skip the fawning. Drop the rehearsed questions. Be real. Because most people in high places are starving for normalcy. They are tired of the pedestal. Tired of being objectified or idolized. When you meet them at eye level, not knee level, they relax. They laugh. They open up. You become memorable, not because you impressed them, but because you didn't try to. You saw the person, not the pedestal. This approach is deeply humanizing. It signals emotional maturity and confidence. You're not intimidated. You're not playing status games. You're just there. Curious. Present. Friendly. That energy is rare in rooms where everyone's trying to prove something. And it often leads to relationships, not just encounters. So whether you're meeting a celebrity, a CEO, or a genius, don't try to perform. Just forget the fame. See the soul. And talk like you would to anyone else. Because behind every impressive resume is someone who's craving connection without conditions. 87. Mention a mutual interest, not a person. When trying to connect with someone, especially a new acquaintance or someone you admire, most people default to mentioning a mutual friend. Oh, I know so-and-so too. But here's the thing, name-dropping can feel shallow. It anchors the connection in a person, not a shared passion. If you want to build deeper, faster rapport, mention a mutual interest instead. Something they care about. Something you care about. Something alive. For example, instead of saying, I saw you know Alex, try, I noticed you're into Stoicism, have you read Epictetus? That shifts the conversation from who you both know to what you both love. And shared interests create bonding glue. They activate storytelling, opinion sharing, and enthusiasm, all fertile ground for real connection. People love talking about what excites them. When you center the dialogue on a topic, not a third party, you become someone they enjoy talking to, not just someone connected by circumstance. This tactic also removes pressure. You're not leveraging status, you're building substance. And even if you do know a mutual person, lead with curiosity. I heard you're into photography, what kind of gear do you shoot with? Then, let the name drop follow naturally later if needed. So the next time you want to connect, don't ask, who do we both know? Ask, what do we both love? Because relationships built on interest last longer than those built on introductions. 88. Laugh slightly before your joke. Timing can make or break a joke, but it's not just about delivery speed. It's about emotional cueing. One of the simplest tricks to make people laugh more often? Laugh slightly before your joke lands. Just a breath. Just enough to let the other person's brain know, this is light. This is fun. It's okay to smile now. Humor is social permission. People are often unsure whether they should laugh, especially if they don't know you well. But when you pre-signal with a small chuckle or a smile in your tone, you break that tension. You become the emotional leader in the moment. This isn't about being fake or over the top. It's subtle. A warm updraft before the punchline. Think of it as seasoning, not sauce. That tiny laugh makes your joke feel more human, more alive. It also shows that you're enjoying the moment, which makes others want to join you emotionally. People don't just laugh at jokes, they laugh with people. And laughter, like yawning, is contagious. So if you start it, just a little, it often ripples outward. This technique is especially helpful for dry humor or sarcastic lines, where tone might be misread. That early chuckle signals, I'm kidding, or we're in this together. So go ahead, smile mid-sentence. Chuckle before the curve. Give people the emotional cue to join you. Because sometimes, the best way to make others laugh is to laugh first. 89. Let silence sit just 1 second too long. Most people are terrified of silence. The moment a pause enters the conversation, someone rushes to fill it, often with nervous chatter, over-explaining, or clumsy transitions. But silence isn't empty. It's charged. When used deliberately, letting silence sit just 1 second longer than what feels comfortable can be a game-changing psychological tool. That extra beat makes people lean in. It creates weight. It signals seriousness, confidence, and presence. It also triggers introspection. The person you're talking to starts filling the space, not just with noise, but with deeper thoughts. In negotiations, that beat of silence after a proposal can nudge the other side into revealing more. In interviews, that quiet after a question can draw out vulnerability. In conflict, that pause can lower emotional heat. It's not passive, it's active stillness. Silence also forces you to own the moment. When you don't scramble to fill space, you radiate calm authority. It says, I'm not afraid of stillness. I trust the moment. And that's rare. This works beautifully after a powerful question, a confession, or a key point in a story. Let the weight settle. Let their brain breathe. Let their heart catch up. Just one more second. That's all it takes. Most people don't realize how powerful a pause can be, because they never give it room to work. But if you dare to let silence stretch, even slightly, it stops time. And in that stopped moment, truth often arrives. 90. Use their words in your reply. People feel most heard not when you nod, but when you reflect exactly what they said. When you use their words in your reply, you signal that you've truly listened, not just to the meaning, but to the language that carries it. It's subtle, but psychologically potent. Imagine someone says, I just feel drained all the time. And you respond with, I hear you, it sounds exhausting to feel so drained every day. That echo creates resonance. The speaker hears their own voice mirrored back, and it reinforces connection. It tells them, you didn't just hear me, you absorbed me. This technique deepens trust fast. It's often used in therapy, mediation, and high-stakes communication. But it's just as powerful in everyday life. It helps people feel validated, not corrected. Understood, not managed. It's also a subtle form of linguistic alignment. People tend to trust others who speak like they do. Using their phrasing, even a few key words, puts you on their emotional wavelength. It's not mimicry, it's empathy in action. And the best part? It's easy. Just listen closely. Pick a word or phrase they emphasized. Then use it naturally in your response. Let it anchor the flow. When done right, people don't even notice it consciously, but they feel it. Because in the end, it's not just about what you say. It's about whether someone hears themselves in your voice. 91. Never break eye contact while listening. True presence is rare. And one of the clearest signs of presence is sustained eye contact while listening. Most people think of eye contact as something you use when speaking. But its deepest power comes when you hold it while someone else is talking. That unbroken gaze tells the speaker, I'm here. You matter. I'm not preparing my response, I'm absorbing yours. This kind of eye contact builds rapid trust. It makes the speaker feel seen, heard, and grounded. It slows them down, deepens their thoughts, and often leads to moments of real honesty. You're not interrupting with your eyes. You're inviting, encouraging, holding space, and the effect is profound. In personal relationships, it says, I care. In business, it says, I respect your ideas. In conflict, it says, I'm listening, not just defending. The key is soft eye contact, not a stare. Let your gaze be steady, but gentle. Let your face stay calm. Nod occasionally. Match their tone with your energy. This isn't about dominance, it's about emotional gravity. Most people scatter their attention. They check phones, scan the room, glance away mid-sentence. But when you hold your gaze, you hold their trust. They open more, share more, remember you more. So next time someone's speaking, don't just hear them. See them. And let them feel that seeing in the way your eyes refuse to look away. 92. Touch the table to anchor attention. Physical gestures can steer psychological focus. One especially effective yet underused move is this. When making an important point in conversation, gently touch the table. It might sound trivial, but it's not. That brief, deliberate motion sends a signal that says, this part matters. It grounds the moment. It brings attention back from drifting thoughts or digital distractions. Think of it as a physical underline. You're anchoring both your words and the listener's attention to a shared, stable surface. It makes your point feel tangible, almost like you're placing an idea between the two of you, not just floating it in the air. In group settings, this works wonders. That touch commands micro-authority. Without raising your voice, you're saying, "Stay with me here." It's especially useful in emotionally charged or fast-moving conversations. A calm touch on the table slows the tempo. People unconsciously reorient. They lean in. It's not confrontational, it's grounding. The gesture should be subtle, not dramatic. A light tap. A still palm. A calm touch followed by your point. "Here's what I'm thinking." Touch. "This is what we're not seeing yet." Touch. These are moments of micro-anchoring. They don't just draw attention, they give weight to your message. So next time you speak, don't just let your words float away. Place them down. Let them land. And let the table remind everyone, this part counts. 93. Ask, what made you say that? When someone says something surprising, bold, or even off-putting, our first instinct is usually to react, to correct, defend, or question the logic. But a far more powerful move is to pause and ask, what made you say that? This simple question is like a key. It gently unlocks the door to someone's inner reasoning, emotional context, or hidden story. It's not confrontational. It's not accusatory. It's curious. And curiosity changes everything. When you ask this, you're not debating their statement, you're inviting the person behind it to step forward. Suddenly, they're not just throwing out a comment, they're reflecting. They're explaining. They're getting honest. And that's where real connection starts. Sometimes, what they said was just a symptom of something deeper: fear, frustration, experience. By asking what made them say it, you help them trace it back to its origin. And that makes people feel heard in a way they rarely are. This works beautifully in tense conversations. Instead of escalating, it diffuses. It gives them space to articulate themselves instead of defend themselves. It also helps you avoid misunderstanding. Maybe what you thought was offensive was actually just poorly phrased vulnerability. Or maybe it was harmful, but now you understand why. And that gives you a stronger place to respond from. So next time someone surprises or stuns you with their words, don't judge. Don't react. Ask. Because what made them say it might just reveal who they really are. 94. Mirror their energy, then lead it. Every conversation has a rhythm, a pulse of tone, speed, emotion, and intensity. One of the most powerful ways to influence that rhythm is by first matching it. When you mirror someone's energy, whether it's excitement, calm, frustration, or hesitation, you send a subconscious signal, I'm in sync with you. That sync creates trust. People feel understood, seen, safe. Only then can you begin to lead the energy where you want it to go. This technique is rooted in behavioral psychology and often used in therapy, sales, and leadership. For example, if someone's agitated, don't jump straight into calming tones. That creates dissonance. Instead, meet them where they are. Use slightly raised energy. Match their urgency. And once you've made contact, dial it down gradually, they'll follow. The same works in reverse. If someone's disengaged or low energy, start where they are. Match the quiet, then gently raise your own enthusiasm. Over time, they'll often rise with you. This isn't manipulation, it's emotional pacing. And it requires empathy. You're not just changing the conversation's mood, you're guiding someone's nervous system. You're saying, I feel you, and I'm helping you shift. That's incredibly powerful in relationships, conflict, negotiations, or motivation. So next time you want to change the tone of a room or a conversation, don't force it. Mirror it. Meet their energy, then move it. Because people don't follow who speaks the loudest. They follow who walks with them, then ahead. 95. Smile with your eyes, not just mouth. A fake smile is easy to spot. The lips stretch, but the eyes stay flat. There's no warmth, no light. But when someone smiles with their eyes, something changes. Their whole face softens. The energy in the room shifts. People feel safe. This kind of smile, sometimes called a Dutchian smile, activates genuine emotional signals in the brain. It triggers trust, warmth, and friendliness in whoever sees it. Why? Because it's authentic. It doesn't just look like joy, it feels like it. The trick is to connect your smile to a real feeling. Don't just think, I should smile now. Think about something you like about the person. Appreciate the moment. Feel grateful. Even a small flicker of emotion behind your eyes will animate your face in a way no forced grin can. This is especially powerful in first impressions. People may not remember your words, but they'll remember how your face made them feel. A warm-eyed smile disarms tension, welcomes vulnerability, and creates instant approachability. It's useful in negotiation, customer service, dating, interviews, any moment where trust is the goal. And here's the best part. When you smile with your eyes, you feel better, too. It activates a feedback loop of positivity. So next time you're entering a conversation, pause for 1 second. Find a flicker of joy or kindness inside yourself, and let it show in your eyes. Because the eyes don't just reveal truth, they create it. 96. End with a compliment, always. The end of any interaction is what lingers longest. It's the final taste, the emotional afterglow. That's why ending with a genuine compliment is one of the most impactful habits you can develop. It's not flattery. It's intentional gratitude or recognition, something small, specific, and sincere. When you say, by the way, I really appreciated your insight earlier, or you're great at making people feel comfortable, you leave the other person uplifted. That creates an emotional anchor. Long after the words fade, the feeling remains. People might forget what you said during the conversation, but they will always remember how you made them feel as it ended. This habit works in every setting: workplace, dates, customer calls, even chance meetings. Ending with a compliment turns the entire interaction golden. It's also powerful for you. It trains your brain to scan for the good in others. It softens your tone. It closes loops with kindness instead of critique. The key is sincerity. Don't force it. Look for something honest. It could be how they spoke, how they listened, how they showed up. Say it simply, gently. And let that be your closing note. Compliments are free, but their impact is rich. They build bridges, restore trust, and brighten memory. So make it your rule. Whenever you leave a conversation, leave them better than you found them. With one true compliment, always. 97. Be interested, not interesting. In most conversations, people try to impress. They tell their best stories, flaunt their achievements, crack jokes, doing anything to seem interesting. But here's the twist. If you want to truly captivate someone, don't try to be interesting, be interested. When you show genuine curiosity about the other person, you trigger one of the deepest human needs, the desire to be seen. When you ask thoughtful questions, really listen, and follow up with emotion, you make the other person feel important. And that feeling is magnetic. It draws people in. They associate you with warmth, with presence, with connection. Ironically, they walk away thinking you were the most interesting person, because you gave them the chance to express their full selves. It's counterintuitive, but it works like magic. Being interested doesn't mean interrogating. It means engaging. Asking not just what do you do, but what made you choose that? Not just where are you from, But what was it like growing up there? You go past surface and into story. That's where connection lives. And you don't just get facts, you get emotion. In any room, the person who asks the best questions becomes the most memorable. So don't perform. Don't chase validation. Be a mirror, a spotlight, a warm pair of eyes. Because while impressive fades, connection sticks. Be interested, and you'll never have to worry about being interesting. 98. Ask, what are you thinking right now? This question stops time. It pierces through the surface of conversation and invites the raw, present moment. What are you thinking right now? It's simple, bold, disarming, and powerful. Most conversations run on autopilot, scripts, patterns, polite exchanges. But this question flips the table. It forces reflection, honesty, presence. You're not asking about the past or future, you're asking about right now. That alone makes it different. It creates intimacy because it invites someone to share a thought they might not have voiced otherwise. And in that space, magic happens. You might uncover worry, excitement, hesitation, admiration. Things they wouldn't have said unless asked. It builds trust because it proves you care, not just about their story, but their mind in this moment. This question works in romantic relationships, tense negotiations, coaching, even casual conversations. It's like turning on a light in a room no one realized was dark. And the key is to ask it gently, with warmth, not pressure. If they pause or laugh awkwardly, stay quiet. Give them space. Most people are stunned because no one ever asks this. But when you do, you show up as something rare, someone who isn't just talking, but listening for truth. So next time the air feels thick, or the moment feels real, lean in. Say softly, what are you thinking right now? And let the real conversation begin. 99. When unsure, repeat the last thing they said. When you're unsure what to say, or when you're caught off guard in a conversation, there's a deceptively simple move that can save you. Just repeat the last thing they said. Not robotically, not mockingly, but with slight upward tone or gentle curiosity. For example, if someone says, I just don't think it's going to work, you can reply, you don't think it'll work. That reflection does two things. First, it buys you time. While your brain catches up, you're still engaging. Second, it makes the speaker feel heard, and often, they'll go deeper. They'll clarify, elaborate, or emotionally unfold. This technique is rooted in active listening, but it doubles as a conversational parachute. You don't freeze. You guide. You nudge them forward with their own words. It also works in disagreements or delicate moments. Instead of reacting too quickly, you reflect. That pause cools the emotional temperature. It makes them feel respected. And it often gives you insight into what they really mean. People love hearing their own thoughts echoed. It tells them they are being taken seriously. And paradoxically, the more they talk, the less pressure on you to perform. So if you're ever lost for words, don't panic. Just echo. Let them keep the thread going. Because in that space between their sentence and your next move, trust is built. 100. Say, that reminds me of a story. Humans are wired for stories. We don't just think in facts, we think in narratives. That's why the phrase, that reminds me of a story, is so incredibly powerful. It instantly resets attention. It primes the listener's brain to expect something meaningful, entertaining, or emotional. You're not just replying anymore, you're transporting. And when you tell a relevant story, even a small one, you shift from data to depth. Stories create resonance. They are how we pass down wisdom, express vulnerability, or inspire change. They are sticky, emotional, and unforgettable. And best of all, they make you relatable. You're not just speaking, you're sharing. When you say, that reminds me of a story, It's like cracking open a window. People lean in. They want to know what's coming. And if the story reflects something true, funny, or meaningful, it lands with 10 times more impact than any argument. This move also transitions conversation gently. It bridges moments, fills silences, and smooths over tension. It gives your insights context. Just make sure the story is relevant, honest, and doesn't hijack the moment. Keep it short and emotionally alive. You're not performing, you're revealing. And that makes people trust you. Remember, we don't remember facts, we remember how stories made us feel. So when in doubt, go narrative. Say those magic words, "That reminds me of a story," and let your listener enter your world.